What must I do for your love? Will you love me if I'm more like Jennette? Will you embrace me in your arms and promise to never cast me away?
I will do no such thing, even on the day of my demise.
But why? I'm your daughter too, father. I've been by your side far longer than Jennette.
Foolish child. I never once considered you my daughter.
Claude was heartless until the very end. Euthanasia's eyes glimmered with profound despair like never before. Huh? Are you joking? There's no way I will ever come to such a fate. I will not be abandoned, you hear me? If there's one thing even a tyrant emperor is weak against, it's the cuteness of your dear daughter. Papa? 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 Welcome to a manhwa that can only be described as a feast for your eyes. If you've read anything in this genre, you probably tripped over some of these characters, even if you don't know where they are from. These designs and the art style are iconic. Who Made Me a Princess is a webtoon based on a novel by Plutus, who also wrote Beware of the Brothers, and ran between 2017 and 2022. And thus, it is one of the OGs. It was illustrated by Spoon, who is one of the most recognizable artists in the genre, despite not having many big series. It wouldn't be controversial at all to claim that this manhwa became as famous as it is, mainly because of their art. For anyone who loves eye candy and psychopathic men who turn soft because of their adorable daughters, this is the definitive work. For anyone who has concerns about psychopathic men who attempt to kill their daughter and then have to be won over so they don't do that, well, Who Made Me a Princess is one of these works where I was surprised so many people didn't like it. When you start reading, the premise becomes obvious rather quickly. This is one of the first stories where a reincarnated beautiful princess has to earn the love of her tyrant father to ensure that she will not be doomed. To ensure that her place isn't taken by the original heroine of the novel. The manhwa adaptation made this father-daughter relationship the main event and also added some more interesting dynamics among the antagonists. Note that I say antagonists and not necessarily villains. We do have those too though. These changes are not beloved by everyone, even if I welcome them. But more than that, quite a few people seem to hate Claude, the tyrant dad in question. Because he plays such a big role, it's almost impossible to get through this work if you hate him. Many find him hot, many wish him death, so you could say he is quite controversial. Here's the story about why Claude the Alga Obelia might be, considered by some, the worst manhwa dad. Please keep the content warnings for this fictional story in mind. What must I do for your love? In a beautiful palace, surrounded by white columns decorated with gold, a girl kneels. Her hands tightly grasp the legs of the man before her. She begs him to love her, wonders if he would like her if she was more like her sister, Jennette. But he should remember, she is his daughter too. The man's expression doesn't shift as the desperate pleas sound and tears run down her cheeks. He coldly tells her that he will never love her, even until the day he dies. She begs for a reason. Why won't he love her? She has been here longer than Jennette, so why? The man's expression darkens. Foolish child, I've never once considered you as my daughter. The girl's shaky hands release him. Despair lets her eyes widen before she drops to the floor, staring into the nothingness as tears fall like rivers. But Claude remained heartless, even as Athanasia cried. And so, Chapter 8 of Lovely Princess ends. What a grim setting. Luckily, our female lead won't have to think about that too hard. She just suddenly remembered that scene because the princess had the same name as her. It was a tacky novel anyway, it won't influence her much. Oh, our female lead awakens as a small chubby baby. Before she can even understand what is happening, she is scolded by a maid who calls her princess but treats her with little affection. This woman views the princess as more of a nuisance, it seems. The maid puts her into a crib before leaving. Meanwhile, our female lead can only lie there and wiggle around. As she stares at her short and stubby limbs, she realizes it would take a while to get used to this. She remembers going to sleep as an adult woman, and now she has become a baby. A princess in a different world. A neglected and broke baby princess. It seems our female lead can't even enjoy the fruits of being reincarnated, when the maid merely keeps berating her. But even worse, the female lead finds out she is the daughter of the emperor, who is, well, a ruthless bastard. He killed all of his previous concubines the day his daughter was born. Her mother was a dancer who became the emperor's lover and then died during childbirth. Ever since then, the female lead has been raised by the maids of the Ruby Palace, the very building where that massacre took place. Her father never visited, but in the very least, she has received the name from her deceased mother, Athanasia, for short, Athy. The name is supposed to prophesize a long life, but in the book she died at 18, at the hands of the emperor. Athy is terrified of that future. In her opinion, being forgotten in this palace is the best option. Even if the maids barely take care of her, she gets food, sleep, and is safe for now. So, the main goal is gathering a lot of money and leaving once she is old enough. Athy knows what she wants early and reaches for every bit of gold she can find. Lillian York, or Lily, the head maid and the only person who truly seems to care about this baby, finds it adorable and keeps bringing more expensive gifts. Athy is overjoyed. As the months pass, the emperor still hasn't shown up. Athy assumes he has forgotten her, so she focuses on gaining money and learning how to crawl. As Lillian reads her a book, Athy finds out that magic is very much real in this world. It seems the magicians of the tower are powerful enough to destroy entire empires. To prevent this, they use magic to freeze their own hearts, to limit their emotions and prevent outbreaks. Athy also finds a picture of her deadbeat father, the current emperor of the Obelian Empire. He is viewed as a hero for destroying the demon-worshipping tyranny before him, but to Athy, he is just the guy who slaughtered his innocent harem and then abandoned his daughter. A scummy murderer called Claude de Alga Obelia, the same name as the father from the novel. Athy remembers reading Lovely Princess online. It was a story about two princesses. Well, mostly about the second one, Jennette, an angel beloved by all, even by the ruthless emperor who killed his own brother to take the crown. He only found out about her existence when she was 14. His former fiancé had given birth to her after ending their engagement and had hidden her at the estate of Duke Alfoys. While indifferent to her at first, Claude was quickly charmed by her loveliness. The heroine gained a devoted father and later married the son of Duke Alfoys, the best bachelor in the empire. Meanwhile, the first princess, Athanasia, grew up in a palace being ignored by her father. She only met him at the age of 9. While he remained uninterested, she was starved for his affection and worked hard to win it, only for her debutante ball at the age of 14 to shatter that hope when Jennette arrived. Even though Athanasia was innocent too, everything she ever wanted, including her father's love, was taken away by Jennette. Eventually, Jennette was poisoned by her own aunt. Athanasia was framed to ensure that Jennette can take over the throne. Without confirming the facts, Claude had Athanasia executed. Even when the truth was revealed, he couldn't care less. Isn't it unfair that Jennette got to be happy after all that? Well, Athanasia wasn't our female lead's favorite character ever, so it wasn't that big of a deal. At least it wouldn't be if she wasn't Athy right now. As she cries, Lillian picks her up to console her. She happens to be the only person who believed in Athy in the novel too, and was executed alongside her. She volunteered to become the princess's maid years ago, because she once held Athy's mother, Diana, dear. Athy doesn't want her to die, and naturally, she wants to survive as well. So, the solution is obvious. She has to leave the palace as soon as possible. Years pass. Our baby Athy has now grown up to be 5 years old. She has learned how to walk and also the skill of manipulating adults into giving her sweets. During the past few years, Athy has also resolved the issue of her belongings disappearing. The thieving maids have been forced to return everything, so Athy is now free to siphon them away. All for her plan to flee as soon as possible. Athy also learned that she gained a pretty face from her mother and her jewel eyes from her father. Apparently, these are a sign of the imperial family's magic. One day, Athy gets lost picking flowers. She finds a giant palace outside of Ruby Palace. It's empty, so Athy decides to store her getaway funds here. Whenever she has the chance, she ties small pockets to her legs and hides them below her dress while she runs over to the hidden palace. Of course, she can't help herself when she finds gold statues that were put in that palace. She bites one to check if they're real and pulls back with glee, only to be caught by a certain blonde man. It's none other than Emperor Claude, who wonders what pest ran into his garden, where he is seemingly taking walks with his entire chest out like this. I'm not judging, it's just a little unusual for an emperor. Claude sees her face and immediately remembers her mother, that wench he calls Diana. He also remembers her name, Athanasia. What a daring name. Only the heir to the throne is allowed to have a name related to immortality, but Diana gave it to her without asking the emperor. It's the sole reason Claude didn't kill Athy during the massacre in Ruby Palace, because he wondered if she would end up surviving like her name promised. Athy can't breathe. The air feels thick and heavy. She wonders if Claude will kill her if... The pockets on her legs fall, smash onto the floor, and roll away. The situation has gone from bad to worse as Athy's thievery was revealed. Claude reaches for her and picks her up. He tells her she is heavy. No wonder with how chubby her cheeks are, he notes.
He did not just say that.
Athy is about to lose it, but then he asks her what she's doing in his palace. His palace? Oh, the red-haired knight behind Claude, Felix Robin, chimes in as if to defend Athy. He says she must have thought those statues were toys. Claude agrees and hurls his daughter at him. Felix should carry her to their destination. They are going to have tea together. Athy is as stiff as ever, assuming a slight mistake could cause her death. Claude is annoyed with her silence, so she forces herself to speak and grins at him, pretending to be an innocent child as much as possible. Claude keeps flaunting his chest for some reason. He muses about Athy's name for a moment, and notes that he would have her mother quartered if she had been alive. Romantic. Maybe he is hateful because he, himself, wasn't granted an imperial name because his brother was the original crown prince. He then encourages Athy to eat. She hesitates. Claude wonders why she isn't eating. While looking at her like this, mind you. Oh, I wonder why she isn't eating. He says he will punish the servants if she doesn't eat. So Athy forces herself. Claude keeps talking. He mentions Lillian threw herself in front of him to ask permission to take care of Athy. Only her and Diana ever stopped him and survived. Athy almost chokes on her food. Claude asks if she even knows who he is. Athy drops her fork as utter fear runs through her. This isn't just a question. It's a test to see if Athy is amusing enough to be left alive. Or if she's boring enough for him to kill her now. And Athy chooses to play dumb. If Claude liked Jennette so much, that innocent and childish girl, then... Father? No, that's too formal. Daddy? It's desperate. It's embarrassing for Athy, and for me, but it works. Felix is ordered to send her back. Lillian and the maids are quite worried, but then Felix relays the Emperor's words. Claude wants to see her again soon. The maids are a bit hopeful. Athy isn't. She immediately changes her plan from staying in Ruby Palace to leaving as quickly as possible. Alternatively, plan C is to win Claude over. Yeah, it's certainly an option. Athy decides to try to win him over, while also preparing her getaway. A few days later, Claude calls for Athy and Lillian. He thanks the maid for watching over his daughter and apologizes for being so busy otherwise. From now on, he will watch over the princess's well-being though. She will receive all the luxuries she deserves. Athy isn't happy with this attention, and Lillian is worried too, even as she says it will be alright. During the following days, she keeps meeting Claude. It seems he favors it when she acts like a happy, adoring daughter, and gets annoyed when she acts scared. So, Athy does her best, even during a boat ride. She makes sure to tell Claude how pretty he is and how shiny his hair is. He reminds her that he still has those valuables she lost at his palace. He will let her pick those up the next time. Athy doesn't dare ask for them though. And then, she sees a transparent lotus flower. It's so pretty, she wants to touch it. Right now. Athy reaches out and falls into the water. She feels something wrap around her leg and pull her down. She breaches the surface for just a moment and begs for help. Claude just looks at her. He makes no move to save her. Athy realizes he won't do anything as she is dragged down. Water gets into her lungs. It gets darker and darker. Her sight blurs as, with a splash, Athy lands on the floor. Lillian tries to hold her up as maids and knights surround them. Someone pulled her out of the water. But weirdly enough, none of the people around her are wet. It's only Claude's hand that is dripping with water. He orders Felix to teach Athy how to swim and leaves without another word. Athy cries. She stays in bed for a while after, deciding that there is no way she can win over someone who'd let a child drown. She finds out that the lotus flowers were magic and known to prey on humans, and Claude still didn't help her? Unforgivable. The next day, Claude has sent 20 new maids, and so Felix, who will be Athy's guard for now. Though, Athy hasn't forgiven him, and is upset that her old maids were replaced. The new ones won't give her any chocolate when she begs for it, so the situation has turned dire. Felix says she should just complain to Claude when she sees him for dinner. Felix brings her over and then ushers her into Claude's bedroom, where the Emperor is sleeping. Athy finds a golden map that looks awfully like a remixed version of our real-world map. Pretty sure that's China and that's knockoff Europe. She also finds a picture of someone who might be Jennette's mother and Claude sleeping on the sofa. Athy does the only correct thing and raises her fists to hit him. But unfortunately, Claude wakes up, and she has to pretend she was only going to pet him while singing a lullaby. Claude flaunts his chest again and shows off his figure too while he's at it, so even Athy has to avert her gaze. During dinner, she flounders in the worst way possible and sends her utensils flying. Claude announces that she will have to take etiquette lessons soon. In the evening, Lillian sings her a lullaby. Meanwhile, Claude muses over the fact that Athy looks like her mother. He says he got unlucky. In another year, he would have forgotten Diana's face completely. Felix seems upset. He says Athy is quite lovely. Claude says he has forgotten what that sentiment feels like. He glances at the portrait in the corner. Felix doesn't say anything, but he thinks that was a lie. During the next tea meeting, Athy insists on trying Claude's tea. She keeps acting cute and says it feels like flowers are blooming in her mouth. Claude and Felix tense. It seems Diana said the same thing. Felix is happy about the similarity. Claude gets mad and sends him away though. He says Athy is too young for tea and should stick to milk. Athy spends her time drawing. She starts with Lillian and Felix, then she draws herself kicking Claude. And after that, she asks what her mother looked like. Lillian and Felix tense. They describe her slowly, but as Athy makes a careless remark about wishing to see Diana, they get sad. Days later, Felix even suggests asking Claude to use magic to show his memory of Diana. Athy gets scared of the reaction and stops him. If Claude hates talking about Diana, what if he will hate Athy for bringing her up too? Felix promises that Claude doesn't hate Diana or Athy, but Athy runs off. During another visit to Claude, Athy waits before the audience chamber. She meets Duke Roger Alfoys, who is currently raising Jennette. He's also the father of Ijekiel Alfoys, the male lead. According to Athy, he's an ambitious man who wants to use Jennette to gain a bit of power himself. Athy messes with him by calling him a dog, which makes Claude laugh for a moment. Claude picks Athy up and plops her down on a random pillow corner in the audience room. He wants to sleep, so he asks Athy to sing the lullaby again. She pretends to have forgotten, and Claude tells a story of how he tortured some traitors to make them confess when they pretended to have forgotten the mastermind too. Athy sings the lullaby. Claude falls asleep, and she tears out some of his hair to get back at him. Felix says it's incredible that the Emperor trusts her so much. He also apologizes for making Athy mad, and mentions that his mother was Claude's nanny. When he lost her, he pretended to be indifferent too, but was actually quite upset. Athy admits that she would like to meet her mother, but is fine as long as her father loves her. Felix says she definitely doesn't need to worry about that. As Athy falls asleep, she dreams about a beautiful blonde dancer. a lady whose presence calms her down. We see Claude rest his fingertips on her head as a smile forms on her lips. 2 years later, Athy has started going to Claude voluntarily. Why? Because he always feeds her delicious food. Claude knows she seems to like the food more than him, and then warns her to ignore any strange visitors she might meet on the way. He means Duke Alpheus, who promptly asks if Athy wants some playmates. His son is her age after all. It seems he wants to win her favor now that the Emperor cares for her. He even suggests bringing a girl if Athy prefers that. He calls that girl his niece. He means Jennette. Athy immediately refuses, using the excuse that she is too intelligent for children her age. Duke Alpheus has no choice but to give up. A few days pass. Athy meets a cute dog-like creature with black and blue fur. She follows it and tries to catch it, only to spot a black-haired man. As Felix searches for her, she remains invisible to him after that man snaps his fingers. Then he creates countless rainbow bubbles. It seems Athy has met a mage. She is excited and jumps around, but suddenly it gets harder to breathe. The dog barks, distracting the mage so that Athy can breathe again. The mage gets all mad at it and calls it Raven, suggesting that he should be rid of it. Athy stops him and he mentions that she is this being's master. Apparently, Raven is a divine beast formed by her strong magic. The mage starts quizzing Athy about the name of the Emperor. It seems he slept a few centuries because he names past rulers and laughs when he hears the name Claude. Then he abruptly grabs her chin and grins. She is interesting, something he hasn't seen before. He decides to keep her alive. What's with all the dudes loudly announcing that they are gonna keep Athy alive here? The mage introduces himself as Lucas. He threatens to take Athy's divine beast and only stops when she begs him to. In return, he demands a favor, to be able to take something from Athy later. Then he disappears. Athy takes Raven home, where he promptly devours her chocolate. She is a bit miffed, but keeps raising him. As Athy visits Claude to go on a stroll with him, she wants to ask Felix to pick her up, but accidentally taps on Claude's hand. He obeys but holds her like a sack of potatoes. She complains and Felix demonstrates how to carry a child properly. Athy wants to stay with him, but Claude gets jealous and proceeds to carry her during the entire walk, which makes both Claude and Felix incredibly strong. Carrying a 5-year-old is already incredibly difficult, and now she's 7. Frankly, it's a bit concerning she still wants to be picked up during walks, but okay. As Claude tells Felix to keep some distance because he is still jealous, Athy gets annoyed by a fly. She raises her hand to smack it, and smacks Claude right in the face. She swiftly apologizes and tries to explain and even gives him a small kiss to make up for it, but she is still tense during the meal after. Claude complains about her puny arm strength, just as Athy coughs and suddenly spits out blood. Claude seems shocked for the first time, and Athy faints. Athy wakes up feeling like her body is on fire. She cries. Next to the bed, a mage is kneeling and swearing that he can't do anything else to heal her. Claude threatens to kill him if he can't fix this. As Athy cries more, he tells her to sleep and rests his hand on her forehead. She promptly dreams of Diana. Diana is crying. A man rushes toward her. He reaches for her arms. It's Claude who is begging her. Diana cries even harder. She wonders how he can ask such a thing of her. Claude says that he has no choice if he doesn't want to lose her. He begs her to choose him, and not the child that is destroying her. Athy wakes up, finding Lucas next to her bed. He smugly says that he saved her life, and he might be right. She feels no pain anymore. As Claude enters the room, she runs toward him. She stumbles, but Claude kneels to catch her and pick her up. As she turns around, Lucas pretends to cough and cry. He says he will need more time to stabilize her mana, but he desperately needs a rest first. Not only that, he has shrunk and now looks like a child. Athy gets mad at his games and he only smirks at her. He appears again a few days after that. Lucas explains that she got sick because she absorbed Raven's mana while touching him. Her father almost killed Raven for it, but that would have overwhelmed her mana flow even more. So really, she owes Lucas her life. Lucas also admits that he has shrunk because he used up so much mana. He does abuse his new appearance though, as it makes it easy to manipulate others. He promptly does that with Claude, who says Athy can't see Raven for too long anymore. Claude puts his fingertips on Athy's head, and she sleeps again, dreaming of Diana. As she rests, Claude sits next to her bed. He admits that he wanted to kill her every day until now, but couldn't do it. He wanted to forget Diana, but now someone who looks just like her clings to him. Not just that, this person is also the reason Diana died. How couldn't he hate her? But then, when he heard that this divine beast was hurting Athy, he almost ended its life right there. He hates Athanasia, he hates Athy, but as she lies there, sleeping peacefully, his hand brushes over her head. Shortly after, Athy has recovered and can go out again. Claude insists on carrying her often though. When her hair ornament gets messed up, he even helps her put it back. His behavior truly changed. He even made her move into Emerald Palace, the palace where Jennette is meant to stay in the novel. Athy is more upset with the fact that Felix got her a new playmate though. It just had to be Lucas, whom she can't stand. Lucas says she should just think of him as her age. When she says that Duke Alphys' son would have been a much better friend than that, he shrugs and says she can go meet him if she likes him more. With a snap, Athy is teleported into the air. She falls and lands on a young white-haired boy, Ijekiel, the male lead of the novel. He calls her an angel. Athy hides behind some plants and simply nods along to hide her identity. She asks him about Jennette, and Ijekiel knows that he must protect her but doesn't know how to console her when she is crying. Just as Athy wants to reply, she is teleported back. She smacks Lucas in the face, which shocks him, but he doesn't get mad. Instead, Lucas does the whole spiel about, "She's the first person to hit me." Somehow, it's romantic to him, I guess. Later, Athy studies more. Lucas reads a book about the magician of the tower, and keeps correcting everything the book gets wrong about this mysterious man. We all know what that implies, but Athy doesn't yet. She only wonders why he cares so much. Oh, and Duke Alphys shows up again, and wants Ijekiel to become Athy's playmate. She shuts it down quickly though. As Athy asks Lucas if he could teleport her to meet Ijekiel again, he does her the favor. She lands in the fireplace this time. Ijekiel is a real gentleman because he helps her out and then brushes her off. She sticks with the angel excuse and even had Lucas turn her eyes red to hide her identity for now. Pause. I'm not sure why she's doing this, because she's gonna meet Ijekiel at some point anyway, so her identity really doesn't matter. Ijekiel is really sweet and surprisingly clever. He knows all the languages Athy learned and can recite different holy scriptures word for word, much like sociological theories. In short, he's the perfect male lead. Just then, someone knocks on the door. It's Jennette, who begs Ijekiel to spend time with her. He hesitates, but Athy nods at him. As he leaves, Lucas appears behind her and scares her to death. He asks if Jennette is a chimera, whatever he means by that. Maybe she isn't one yet, but she seems like one. He snaps to teleport them to the greenhouse. Athy sees Jennette for the first time. She is already quite lovely, even as she cries for Ijekiel not to leave her alone while he goes away to study. Lucas immediately notes that her mana is weird though. He says she isn't from a pure imperial bloodline, something else is mixed into it. He teleports them back while Athy starts thinking. In the novel, Jennette was the daughter of Penelope Judith, Claude's former fiancée, but she was artificially created. Back when Penelope was engaged to Claude, she longed for more power and approached the crown prince instead. Anastasius, seeing it as a chance to upset his hated brother, accepted her. Claude, who was a lonely child who could only rely on his fiancée's warm promises to stay by his side forever, found her in his brother's bed. That was when he finally decided to forget about family bonds and do whatever it takes to wear the crown. Anastasius became emperor, killed Claude's mother, and used black magic to harm Claude. But Claude ended up being the one to kill him. Penelope fled, but she was already carrying a child with traces of black magic, created by Anastasia's experiment. So, in the end, Jennette isn't even Claude's real daughter, but he accepted her because he loved Penelope so much. He even kept her portrait despite her betrayal. But then, how does Diana fit into the picture? Athy is confused and starts complaining. Lucas interrupts, telling her not to act like a child because she isn't one. She is older on the inside. He gives no further explanation though. Athy doubles her efforts to win Claude over by acting cute. When Jennette appears, her place here needs to be solidified already, so she swears that Lucas is a nice playmate even though he gets on her nerves. Athy studies even more, with Lucas by her side. Meanwhile, Ijekiel leaves his home to study at the academy. Jennette stays at the Duke's estate, alone and insecure. And like that, several years pass. The debutante ball comes to a halt as Duke Alphys steps forward. He announces that the girl with him is the Emperor's daughter. Claude coldly meets his gaze, while she peeks up with a mix of curiosity and fear. He calls it amusing, but leaves. Ijekiel cheers Jennette up and asks for a dance. She becomes the center of all attention, while the other princess is alone in the background. Chapter 2 of Lovely Princess. Athy practices her dancing. Her teachers can't help but call her a fairy and compare her to her mother. She has become even closer to Claude these past few years too. Her birthday is coming up, and like every recent year, he dotes on her with lots of gifts. Jewelry, keys to the treasury, her private library. She is so blessed she doesn't know what else to ask for. Her debutante ball is also approaching though. Felix reminds her that she needs to plan her first dance. Athy gets confused and asks him, only for Felix to laugh nervously and tell her to think again. Lucas calls her an idiot and explains that her father wants to dance with her. Athy still hesitates, so she tells Claude that she wants to dance with Felix. Felix isn't pleased at all and seems to fear for his life. Claude pretends to be indifferent but gets upset, and Athy realizes that he might actually like her more than she realized, which should have become obvious when he let her tackle him and plant kisses on his face. So, Athy prepares to dance with him and asks Lucas to turn into an adult so she can get used to the height difference. Lucas makes whatever this thing is so that she can practice with it instead. This doll is a little too floppy though, so Athy falls and gets frustrated. She wonders what Ijekiel is doing. In return, Lucas teleports her into the empty sky, as she can only dive toward the ground. Ijekiel catches her with ease. He smiles at her and is happy to see her again after such a long time. Athy is just surprised his baby face is gone, since he has turned into a teenager. He is very polite now too, as expected of the male lead. As Jennette's voice sounds, he grabs Athy's hand to pull her further into the bushes though. He brings her to a secret spot, where he withdraws to be alone. He confesses that he thought of her every day since he last saw her, and was so happy to meet her again. Ijekiel gently reaches for Athy. Snap! Lucas teleports Athy back at the worst moment, and as she scolds him, he scoffs. He's displeased somehow, but can't tell her why. Athy stares at her reflection in the mirror and then decides that this body is indeed very pretty. It's no surprise Ijekiel was so interested. He didn't quite hide it, and for once our female lead isn't super dense, so she actually understands. I feel blessed. Athy keeps preparing for her debutante. She butters Claude up a bit more and then cheekily admits she wants him to hold her hand while they enter and to dance with her. Even if he hates such events, she would be so happy. But of course, she is fine with Felix. It would just be so much better if Claude were the one to do it. Claude falls like a piece of origami paper. Athy is so overjoyed, she jumps onto his lap and hugs him. Claude seems a little surprised. On her way out, she meets Duke Alfoys. He brings up her debutante and seems surprised as she mentions that Claude will escort her. It seems he wanted to offer his son as a partner instead of making him go with Jennette, like in a novel. Athy says she looks forward to meeting Ijekiel. Then she spots Lucas and follows him. He seems different today. Instead of immediately teasing her, he kneels and tightens her shoelaces for her. It's a very cute scene, but he can't help it and snaps against her forehead a second after. Athy notes she feels lighter after that. Athy's birthday arrives. She celebrates with her mates, with Lillian and Felix. She receives lots of gifts and compliments, and Lillian tucks her into bed in the evening. But Claude didn't come. It's Diana's death day. Maybe that's why. Athy tells herself she doesn't care, but she can't help but get upset. Lucas scares her as he appears in her room without a warning. Athy's glad he is here though, because he lets her see Raven. Lucas is a bit annoyed and then watches her. He tells Athy she will do well during her debutante. After all, she practiced so much. The morning of Athy's debutante is absolute chaos. The maids fuss over her to ensure that she's ready in time. The results are certainly worth it. And not only Athy is all dolled up, we see Claude in his formal attire for the first time too. He seems surprised when Athy steps out. After some hesitation, he tells her she looks beautiful. Athy can't help but be happy. They enter the ballroom. Athy gets nervous seeing so many people for the first time, and Claude corrects the issue with a single glare. They have their first dance. Athy is overwhelmed, gets distracted, and stomps on Claude's foot. And trips. Claude manages to catch her and whirl her around though. Even as she steps on his foot again, he covers it up. He knows that while she resembles her mother, she has a very different character. After the dance, they bow to each other. The nobles clap, but get a little confused when Claude loudly tells his daughter she is beautiful. They haven't seen the Emperor like this before. Amnesia spots Duke Alpheus in the corner. She wonders if he brought Ijekiel and Jennette. Next to the Duke, there is a black-haired man. A man who meets her gaze with black eyes that almost seemed like they had a blue jewel shine. When Athy looks away, he is gone. She focuses on her father. For a moment, she gets sad. Being an orphan in her first life, Claude is the only father she ever had. She cares about him, but she still offers her farewell, knowing that he would disregard her when Jennette shows up. Claude almost seems to notice something is wrong. Athy goes to dance with the ladies of the ball. Then, from the corner of her eye, brown hair appears. A lady offers to help fix her ribbon. She turns her head. Before her stands the heroine of the novel, Jennette. Her eyes are blue, but aren't showing their jewel pattern. Athy immediately starts their relationship off great by stepping on her foot. She apologizes, but then rejects Jennette as she offers to help with Athy's ribbon. Athy hurriedly turns away and runs off, only to be stopped by a young man, Ijekiel. For good measure, Athy steps on his foot during their dance as well. 3 out of 3, cha-ching. At least Ijekiel says it doesn't hurt much. His back hurts more because Claude is glaring at him with all the wrath in this world. Ijekiel finishes the dance without bringing up their old meetings, so Athy thinks he might have forgotten. Then he bids her farewell with the words, "Goodbye, Miss Angel," and kisses the back of her hand. Athy also dances with Felix, whose feet she also steps on. Meanwhile, it seems Claude has left to take care of some urgent business, but Felix swears he will return. Athy is promptly crowded by nobles who hope to make good connections with the imperial family. Athy gets exhausted quickly and begs her father to end the ball early. Claude takes it as proof that someone must have bothered his daughter and threatens to cut off the offending people's tongues, hands and feet before hanging them on the gate of the palace. Seems like my complaints about protective guys who talk a lot but don't do anything were heard. This guy is so ready to schedule an execution by 8 AM tomorrow. Athy hurriedly shuts this down by clinging to him and saying she just wants to be alone with him. Claude is ready to leave with her when he notices her ribbon is missing. Just then, "Your Highness?" A voice sounds behind them. "You dropped this." Jennette holds the ribbon towards Athy. Athy freezes. Jennette introduces herself as Jennette Margarita. Claude seems to find her face familiar. He notes that she is the girl Duke Alpheus took in. Jennette affirms this and looks at him with undeniable fascination. Claude isn't cold to her. He just says she is quite daring for her age. He then turns around and leaves. Athy just stares at Jennette, so he tells her to move along. Jennette stays behind alone. As soon as she is out of sight, Claude grabs the ribbon Jennette handed over and throws it away. It was dirty after being on the floor, he says. Claude thinks back to the ball. He noticed something was off with Athy, but Duke Alpheus interrupted him. The Duke started asking questions about whether Claude would dote on any other children too if he had them. Claude smiled at him and said that that would only happen if Athy suddenly split in two. Duke Alpheus swallowed and then suggested bringing Jennette to be Athy's friend. Claude rejected him by saying he doesn't want anyone to interrupt his time with his daughter. If any dad said this in real life, it would be concerning. In this scene, I found it fun to see Roger be shot down though. With that, Claude congratulates Athy on her 14th birthday and her public appearance in noble society. Athy smiles at him. In the evening, Athy relaxes on a balcony. Lucas appears and asks if she is upset about something. He flicks her forehead again and says he removed some dirt stuck to her. Again, Athy feels lighter. He pushes her to go to bed. Lucas stays next to her as she sleeps. He does the male grabby hands thing and plays with her hair while wondering if he should stay. Somehow he finds being with Athy fun. She will die without him, so he decides to stay. Back at Duke Alpheus's mansion, Roger scolds Jennette for revealing herself to Claude. Ijekiel tells him to calm down, but he remembers that black-haired man and wonders if his plans are being ruined. Jennette is still in a daze. She sits at her window and stares out. Her mind keeps jumping back to Athy, who's the most beautiful girl in her eyes, and Claude. She can't help but laugh. Meanwhile, that black-haired man notes that things are becoming interesting. He sways as his chest starts aching. He says he will have to replenish his mana before doing anything else. Athy receives lots of invitations after her debutante. She visits Claude to ask which people she should meet first, but he seems busy. At least until he hurls the royal stamp at Felix and just makes him do all the work. Then they get on a boat again. Athy knows that she would like to see one of the lotus flowers up close, so Claude uses magic to show it to her. Only that the flower is actually some kind of tentacle beast that twitches around until Athy shrieks and jumps away. She manages to trip over the edge of the boat and fall into the water. Wonderfully done, Athy. But at least she takes Claude, who was trying to help her, with her this time. He uses magic to get them both out again. At this point, you'd think that those stupid plants would be considered a high risk and be removed. And they are, luckily. Claude tells Athy not to visit the nobles, but to invite them herself, so she has her own tea party in her private garden. All the noble ladies compliment her and do their best to win her favor. Jennette is there too. She looks beautiful even in simple clothes. She introduces herself as Ijekiel's cousin, but says she views him like a brother. The ladies promptly chat about Ijekiel and describe how pretty and perfect he is. Athy smiles along but has no deeper interest. After all, Ijekiel will fall for the heroine. This whole world is made for her anyway. But at least this tea party is pleasant and Athy can enjoy it. The ladies also start talking about how attractive Felix is. Felix hears all of this, the poor guy, and can only get embarrassed. Especially when the ladies bring up that he is the Crimson Knight, who apparently thought that many enemies where Claude took the throne. Athy is shocked. Felix would like to sink into the floor. As the ladies argue who the most attractive man among the nobles is, I say it's the sole person not mentioned, Claude. Lucas walks past and becomes a favorite. Athy sends him away. At the end of the party, Jennette thanks Athy for inviting her. She asks if they will be able to meet again and then smiles. Athy thinks this would have been easy if she had never read the novel, but she did. During the following days, Athy teases Felix by repeatedly calling him the Crimson Knight, while he gets embarrassed. She visits Claude, who sleeps on the couch again. She puts a flower in his hair, only for him to jump up and attack her because he deemed her a threat. Oops. At least he stops when he recognizes her. She says it's dangerous for him to sleep so openly, and he says that magic protects him. Should someone try to harm him, they will be ripped apart. Oh, and the same spell has been put on Athy, so no one can try to stab her either. Athy is a bit concerned, but laughs it off. She invites Claude to join her for a walk. Later, she goes to her library, only to find Ijekiel in there. She asks how he got in here, and he lies, claiming that he thought it was a public one. Really, how lenient of the guards to let him in. But surely Athy won't get him into trouble. She would know a lot about trespassing, so she'll overlook it, right? Seems like the innocent Ijekiel is not so innocent anymore. Athy says he resembles his father. Ijekiel's face falls. He quickly bows and apologizes to her. He admits he came on purpose to meet her and asks for some of her time. Athy is better than me because I would have given him my entire life at that point. But her reply doesn't matter because Lucas interrupts before she can speak. He says Ijekiel shouldn't be here and threatens to throw him out. Ijekiel starts arguing with him and tells Lucas to identify himself. They both develop quite an attitude until Athy interrupts. She says Lucas has every right to be here, so Ijekiel takes his leave. Not without leaning close to hand over a book though. To Athy's dismay, it's a romance novel, so Lucas teases her. At least until he focuses on the guards and admonishes them for letting that unannounced guest waltz in and out. Then he complains about Ijekiel again, calling him arrogant. He tells Athy to remember her age, implying that she doesn't match Ijekiel. He's also smarter and more handsome than him. At least Lucas says that. I would be inclined to disagree, but you know. He even makes himself taller when Athy notes that Ijekiel has the height advantage. Athy quickly forces him to return to his usual size though. Within the same month, Athy has another picnic. She chats a lot with the other ladies. Jennette sticks especially close to her. She admits she also doesn't know how to make friends, so she is glad to spend time with Athy. Athy can't bring herself to reject her, so she enjoys a conversation with her, feeling much lighter. But shortly after, Jennette gets lost in the garden. She is found by Claude, who is parading around half naked again. He swiftly sends her away. Jennette asks if he remembers her. He says he has no reason to and orders her not to show herself in front of him again. Jennette's fingers rest on her ring. As she touches it, her eyes glimmer for a moment, resembling jewels, but she keeps the ring on and merely agrees. Claude passes by her without another word. Jennette hypes herself up, telling herself that he just doesn't know yet. Surely, Duke Alpheus will inform him soon. but her expression drops anyway. Athy is bored as nothing happens in the palace, so Lucas teleports her outside and gives her a new outfit to blend in. They enjoy the food all around the marketplace before sitting at a cafe. By pure coincidence, they sit right next to Ijekiel and Jennette. Athy hides her face behind the menu and they get lucky. She isn't spotted. Well, until she looks at some bird cages a few streets further, and Ijekiel suddenly appears behind her. Athy runs away like her life depends on it, for some reason, leaving Ijekiel standing there with a soft smile. She flew away, he says while looking at Athy through the birdcage. Is that some yandere I'm sensing? Oh my. But anyway, Jennette is left alone while shopping. Just as she turns to search for her cousin, a black-haired man appears next to her. He asks what she is doing, and she says she is searching for a gift for her younger sister. She glances at the man, and instantly thinks he resembles Claude. The man smiles and suggests a sapphire bow. It would fit her sister if she has the same jewel eyes Jennette has. Jennette agrees. The man asks why she's putting such effort into this. She says she and her sister have been separated for a while and she wants to make up. She is more worried about her father though. The man asks if he's very strict. She hurriedly shakes her head and calls Claude kind. Yeah, about that. The man laughs. Let's be for real, we all know who this is. Meanwhile, Athy finds herself lost in the city. She enters a bookshop only for an old man there to tell her that she is carrying a curse. Someone who wishes her ill must have put it on her. Athy starts a conversation with the man. He admits he used dark magic in the past but tells her to avoid it. It will cost something, no matter what. Athy hesitantly asks what might happen to a child created by dark magic. The man says such a thing would be unlikely. Dark magic brings death, not life. That child would definitely be cursed. He also tells Athy that she has a lot to lose, so she shouldn't come to such a place. He throws her out without selling her anything. Athy starts wondering, if anyone who uses dark magic has a bad ending, what about Jennette? She was happy in the novel, but could something bad happen after that? Lucas finds her and brings some ice cream. Then he teleports her back to the palace, where Athy is surprised to have found a magic doll looking just like her. She asks Lucas if she's as pretty as he made the doll. He almost compliments her but catches himself. Then he makes the doll disappear. He says Athy is a little ugly, but much better than this fake version. Yay. Ouch. Sometime later, Athy invites the ladies again. She ends up on a boat with Jennette. Jennette confesses she is so happy to be Athy's friend. She shyly offers the ribbon she bought during that last outing. Athy hesitates but accepts it. In the evening, she wants to pet Raven, but Felix stops her. She asks Lucas if there is a way to get close to Raven without sapping away his magic. Lucas says it's no use because Raven isn't a pet and will eventually disappear. She should just prepare for that. Athy gets upset and hurls a pillow at him. Lucas trips her and says she should delay the whining. He will have to leave for a while. Apparently, he must find the sacred world tree to restore his mana. Claude is holding his head. He can barely stand upright, being in so much pain. He yells for Jennette, who rushes toward him. She tries to help him. Servants whisper about the Emperor being so sick. He might die soon. After all, he has been cursed. A man appears behind them. He has blonde hair this time. He grins as Claude faints and merely tells Jennette to leave this thing be. Athy jolts awake from her nightmare. She is awake just in time to find the birdcage Ijekiel sent her as a reminder of their last meeting. The maids are happy about the gift. Claude is less amused. Felix makes a dumb comment about Athy needing to get married at some point, and Claude's mood is entirely ruined. Athy cheers him up by saying she doesn't want to get married. She will stay with her father until she is old. He will always be her favorite person. This calms Claude down, because it's important for your parental figure to be in direct competition to your partner. That's normal. Athy also asks her father if she resembles her mother. He claims not to remember Diana, but from the dreams he showed Athy, she knows that he does. Lucas prepares to leave to find the world tree. He bids farewell to Athy one last time, stabilizing her mana while she asks if he can't find another way. He is her friend, so she is worried. Lucas freezes at those words. They echo in his head even after he leaves. In front of him, visions of a white-haired man tell him that he pities Lucas. For Lucas was born with nothing and will keep having nothing. Lucas remembers Athy's words and smirks at the man, telling him, who is dead, to get lost. Athy invites the ladies again. They chat about her possibly attending events in the future, as Raven shows up and storms toward the group. The ladies panic and Jennette attempts to pull her to safety, but Raven just licks Athy's face. Jennette calms down quickly and starts petting Raven too, when a flash courses through Athy's ribbon. Her chest aches, she spits out blood. Jennette screams, she reaches for Athy. Magic flickers and pushes her, and everyone else, away. Athy feels weak and heavy, like something was taken from her. The darkness only fades slowly. She wakes up with Lillian and Felix, who are overjoyed she is safe. But Lucas hasn't come to save her. Claude isn't here either. She asks about her father. Lillian and Felix freeze and avert their gazes. Athy drags herself out of bed. She can barely stand, but when she hears Claude has been unconscious ever since she fainted, she can't help it. To save Athy, he used his own mana. That's why he won't wake up. Athy cries for him. She begs Claude to wake up. He doesn't move at first, so tears begin to fall. But then he stirs. Athy is so relieved. She smiles. Claude groans as he opens his eyes. He sits up slowly before finally looking at Athy. What? Who are you? Who are you? Athy doesn't understand at first. Felix kneels and tells Claude that this is his daughter, but Claude repeatedly says he doesn't have any children. He doesn't recognize Athy or Lillian. Dad? As Athy's weak voice rings out, Claude asks her if she has a death wish. She should get out of his sight. It seems he has forgotten her and everyone related to her. For a split second, there's hope as Claude sees his mana in her body, as if he used magic to protect her, and wonders. But as he gets up, blood spurts from his mouth. He collapses. Athy can only watch in utter despair. She faints as well. The next day, she's isolated in her palace. It seems her father gave the order to have her stay there. Raven disappeared too. She might have absorbed him, so she has lost so much she held dear overnight. She tells herself it's better this way. She can survive without trying to act cute now, without pretending to love her father, but... Felix desperately attempts to explain what happened to Claude, but he won't listen. Even as Felix tells him he almost died trying to protect Athy. Claude has forgotten all 9 years of Athy's life, so this seems insane to him. He can't be persuaded even as he sees documents with the current date and the library he built for Athy. Felix is relentless and keeps insisting. Claude can get as mad as he wants, it won't change the truth. Meanwhile, Athy received letters from Jennette. She starts writing to her in return. She soon finds out that Jennette's aunt, Countess Rosaria, will come to the capital soon. The very lady who framed Amnesia. Claude is more overwhelmed with all the new information than before. He feels like he will lose his mind as he sees that he kept all of baby Athy's drawings and even had a portrait commissioned. A portrait where he smiles and seems to be at ease. When has he ever had that expression? Claude hears a voice call him for a moment. Dad? Then memories fade as purple glow surrounds him. The painting doesn't matter, he tells himself. And Amnesia still sits alone at the tea table. Claude dreams of Diana, who begs him to take care of their child, to love their daughter as he loved her. Claude says she chose that child over him, so he could never love it. Diana smiles at him but fades. Claude lunges to hug her, but she disappears from his arms. He sinks back onto the sofa and muses about hating his emotions. It's only because of them that he suffers so much now. Claude doesn't sleep anymore. He can barely function during his birthday celebration. His vision blurs, and then someone brings up Athy. His face turns vile. Athy sits in her palace, eating, while being upset that her father didn't invite her to this banquet. Suddenly, his knights storm in and demand to bring her there. Claude has Athy kneel, and tells her he left her alive even though she made a fool out of him. The entire ballroom whispers, but he doesn't stop. He even chastises Felix for trying to interrupt, and threatens to execute him. He says Athy isn't his daughter, she is merely a criminal. Claude says he isn't in the mood for bloodshed, so he won't execute her right now. But he orders his guards to take her away. Athy screams, tells them to stop. They don't, not until her magic jumps to life, striking like lightning. Her eyes turn cold as she bows to Claude. She will leave on her own, she says. Happy birthday, Your Majesty. With that, she leaves. Her steps falter as soon as she is in the hallway. She falls. Ijekiel comes to help her put on her shoe. She cries, but he says he didn't see anything. Athy realizes she isn't fine, no matter how much she pretends. She hasn't been ever since Claude forgot her. Even in her previous life, all she wanted was a family. Now she had it for a while, only for it to be ripped away so gruesomely. How could she be fine? Claude storms into his room. He removes the cloak, but he still can't breathe. Memories jump into his mind but disappear again. He has forgotten something important. His head is splitting. At the end of the event, the nobles leave. Ijekiel returns to his father, who scolds him for siding with Athy by running after her. They can't risk upsetting the Emperor now. Ijekiel says he can't just step back. He saw Athy cry today, and he can't forgive the person who made her cry either. No matter what his father says, he will take a big risk now. Athy steps out and walks through the rose garden she once loved so much. She grabs a flower and rips it off, then the next one. She paces forward until her eyes meet Claude's. For a moment, silence. Then he says he should have killed her earlier. Her presence is upsetting him, so he might be rid of his insomnia if he kills her. He aims his magic at her, intending to end her life. His own mana protects her though. Still, Claude insists he will be able to kill her. Athy doesn't try to avoid him. She can merely stand there as tears finally well up. How can she still view this man as her father after what he did? Well, maybe she just deluded herself, because the time with him was so wonderful. Athy smiles at him. Goodbye, father. A golden glow surrounds her as she fades away. Claude stays where he is, blood on his hand, a shock setting in. Lillian and Felix storm in. His rage wells up as he orders for Athy to be brought back to him immediately. Lucas finds the world tree, but he doesn't see any fruits. He decides to take whatever he can anyway, and starts using his magic. Athy spends the first weeks on the run, using magic to make money and a cloak to hide her face. Everyone is searching for the princess though, so she can't stay anywhere for too long. She starts wondering if someone might have cursed her. Maybe the sole person connected to black magic here? Jennette? Upon visiting her, she overhears an argument between Jennette and Duke Alpheus. It seems Countess Rosaria unexpectedly died, and Jennette wished to attend the funeral, but wasn't permitted. So Athy becomes a bit sympathetic. She writes a letter to arrange a meeting with Jennette. But first she does the most dangerous thing and teleports back into the palace to see if Claude is sleeping. Yep. She doesn't go see Lillian or Felix, but Claude. Luckily he's sleeping on the sofa and won't budge. He has gotten thinner these past few weeks. She gets scared when she steps on a paper that makes a loud sound and picks it up to find one of her childhood drawings. She kneels next to Claude's sofa and watches him sleep, until she taps his forehead. Claude wakes up and is more mildly annoyed than angry. He says he keeps dreaming of her. Athy asks if he still wants to kill her. He says he does. Athy gets upset and proclaims she won't let him do that. Claude realizes she is real and sits up, telling her to stay, but Athy teleports away. 3 days pass, and Athy visits Jennette. She appears at her window and knocks, being horribly nervous. Jennette falls into her arms immediately, crying because she's so glad Athy is well. They keep meeting each other. Jennette views her as family already, but Athy sadly realizes that every time one of them is lucky, it seems to bring the other misfortune. For example, Countess Rosaria's sudden death hurt Jennette, but protected Athy. And that Jennette isn't in the Imperial Palace yet also helps Athy. Amnesia starts bringing Jennette out into the city for a festival, using magic to hide her identity, while they walk around eating food. She offers to let her sister call her Athy, and calls her Jetty in return. Jennette is happy, but just then, that black-haired guy appears. Athy catches herself thinking he looks like her dad. The man mentions that gift Jennette got for her sister last time. Jennette gets terribly embarrassed and tries to keep Athy from finding out, saying that she meant someone like a sister. Athy teases her a bit before saying she views her as a sister too. Jennette has the cutest expression. As a group of people runs past them, Athy stumbles. That man makes an obvious move to avoid her. Even worse, he suggests bringing the two to a new store, and Jennette blindly follows him. In the store, she asks him not to reveal what she said about her sister last time. The man offers her a pinky promise. Jennette smiles at him. He really resembles her father. The words slip out before she can stop them. Athy hurriedly interrupts. That man just had a really cold expression, she notes. Somehow, this guy also reminds her of Lucas a bit. At the end of the day, Athy gives Jennette a bracelet. Then they leave but promise to keep seeing each other. Meanwhile, Lucas successfully beat up the world tree and stole a branch. Congratulations, jumping back again. Jennette is back at home. She worries a bit as Ijekiel keeps going out to search for Athy but doesn't tell him anything. And by chance, she hears Duke Alpheus talk to someone. To a certain black-haired man. An acquaintance who will stay for some time. Jennette is swiftly sent away though. Duke Alpheus is upset they even met. The man merely laughs and says it doesn't matter as long as he doesn't tell Jennette who he is. Duke Alpheus is more worried. If people find out Jennette is the daughter of the previous emperor, they will be in trouble. And there's no way she won't recognize her father. And with that, we can finally drop the pretense and call this man by his real name. Anastasius, the former emperor, Claude's brother, who was allegedly killed, is just hiding in plain sight in Duke Alpheus' estate. Jennette runs into him again. He visits the garden with her and promises not to reveal her outing to Duke Alpheus. Promptly, Duke Alpheus calls for Jennette so that she doesn't speak to Anastasius too much. He also asks her to join him as he visits the palace. Amnesia finds out and tracks along. She is just as shocked as they find Claude on the ground in the garden. Athy has to hide as he wakes up though. Jennette can stay. As Claude wakes up, he feels less bad than before. He can stand again. A day later, Jennette is invited for an audience. Athy realizes she will be all alone if Claude finds out who Jennette is now. Jennette has a completely different issue. She sleeps in a seating room and Anastasius enters as she doesn't wear her ring. He sees her jewel eyes, so she quickly runs off. She wants to beg him not to reveal anything, but he already knows what jewel eyes mean. Anastasius still kneels before her and promises to keep it a secret. Jennette is terribly grateful. Athy, who overheard the ordeal, finds it more than suspicious. She starts researching the royal family, wondering if it's just a coincidence that this man looks like her father. Duke Alpheus asks Anastasius to avoid Jennette, but he rejects that. As long as Jennette focuses on Claude, everything will be okay. And Jennette does go to meet Claude. She has tea with him, just like Athy used to have it. Claude merely falls asleep though. Unsure what to do, Jennette leaves. Claude wakes up again, his eyebrow twitching. The pain has returned. Duke Alpheus brings the news that Jennette has been invited again. He hopes for Claude to come to care for Jennette. With his protection, they might be able to kill Anastasius. Ah, he actually isn't a traitor, huh? Jennette hums as she walks through the hallways. Anastasius stops to talk to her, and she happily reveals that she will get closer to His Majesty. She is so happy that Anastasius stares at her. He asks if this truly elates her so much. Of course, she says, they are my family. Anastasius slumps forward. He thinks about Penelope, an ambitious and selfish woman. He wonders who Jennette resembles if it's not her mother or her father. Meanwhile, Athy finally returns to the palace to see Lillian. Lillian is overjoyed. She says Claude was telling everyone to welcome Athy once she appears. Athy goes to check on him and finds that Claude has tea with Jennette again. For some reason his headaches disappear around her. It looks like a scene from the novel. Athy watches from behind the tree. She wonders if this was always going to happen. If she just temporarily took Jennette's spot, it would be better for her to leave. She teleports away. Right into Ijekiel's room. Ijekiel was in the middle of removing his tie, but swiftly forgets as he holds onto Athy. He begs her to stay. He will protect her for the time being, so she can hide in his room. Tired of everything, Athy agrees. Just then, Jennette returns home and catches them. Athy whispers and makes her pretend to be surprised. Jennette finds herself a bit upset though. She hoped she would share the secret with Athy alone. Ijekiel asks her to be careful. After all, the princess came to him, and he has to honor her trust. But actually, the princess came to her, Jennette thinks. Time passes. Amnesia is still shaken. Her original goal was to survive, she tells herself. She should forget about Claude and focus on herself. Ijekiel keeps visiting. He invites Athy for a walk in the garden with him. As Athy smells the flowers, Ijekiel reaches for her. He catches himself but blushes. Jennette visits Claude again. She smiles as he falls asleep. She feels like he is comfortable around her now. Though she realizes Claude never asked anything about her during any of their conversations. Neither did Athy. Anastasius notices she is unwell and asks. As she tells him, he says she can't expect the princess or the emperor to treat her like family when she won't tell them the truth. Then he asks why she is so focused on them. Jennette says it's because they're family. Family is someone who cares about you, who you cherish and can be comfortable around. Anastasius averts his gaze. Then he warns her. She has no reason to trust that those two will love her. If Amnesia is the crown princess, she will see any sibling as a rival. And Claude doesn't have much love to give. Jennette can only get close to him because Athy is missing. Jennette rejects those ideas and says, "You sound like you know His Majesty well." She realizes he gets mad, so she leaves. But even so, these words stay in her head. She questions whether Athy will welcome her for the first time. She sees her and can't help but ask it. How would you feel if I were your real sister? For a moment, Amnesia can't control her expression. Jennette hides away in her room, hugging her stuffed animal. No, Her Highness likes me, she whispers to herself, as if she doesn't quite believe it. The next morning, Anastasius visits her. He offers her a snow globe to apologize for upsetting her. A faint red glow sticks to it as he thinks this curse might break her personality a little, but it will make it easier to brainwash her. Jennette unknowingly reaches to accept the snow globe, and just as she is about to touch it, Anastasius remembers what she said about family. He puts his hand up, moving the globe away from her. Jennette thinks it's a game, but he only hands the globe over once he removed that red symbol on it. Then Athy appears. She stumbles into Anastasius. Magic flickers. He hurriedly avoids her but ends up being in pain. Claude's defense magic is still strong, he thinks. Athy is annoyed by him but focuses on apologizing to Jennette. She didn't want to react to such a sincere question so selfishly. Jennette melts instantly. She decides to thank Athy by doing something for her. So, during a meeting with Claude, she brings up Athy. "Do you miss Her Highness?" Claude doesn't get mad. He just says he was thinking about Athy anyway. He wants to find out if he truly cherishes her as much as everyone claims. He tells Felix he won't hurt Athy anymore, so he should search properly. Jennette is overjoyed as she tells Athy the news. Amnesia is doubtful. She still enters the palace just to look around. She spots Felix and follows him with invisibility magic. Felix senses her immediately and aims his sword at her. He apologizes as soon as he recognizes her and then happily pushes her to meet Claude right now. Athy's unsure. Last time, Claude tried to kill her. She still follows. Claude sits there at the long table. The distance feels bad, but the silence is even worse. Felix is sent away. Athy chooses to tread as carefully as possible. She calls Claude by his title. Claude starts asking about where she was, what she ate, and how she's been. He doesn't know why he's asking. He feels unwell looking at Athy when she's so scared. Just when he says that, the spitting headache returns. He tells Athy to stay in the Emerald Palace from now on, and collapses. Felix rushes in to help him. Claude orders him to summon Jennette, though he calls her that thing. Athy bites her tongue. Jennette keeps visiting to allow Claude to sleep. Athy is a bit unwell about that. But just then, Lucas appears out of thin air. Athy drags him away to yell at him for being gone for so long. She needed him while she was almost killed. Lucas is surprised, but quickly hears only one important thing. Claude made Athy cry. He offers to punish him. Athy punches him and tells him to heal her father instead. They rush to Claude. Lucas gets even more confused. He says Claude is dying. Claude didn't simply lose his memories. He is affected by a curse, one that serves as a punishment for those using dark magic. Jennette's mana might work as a stabilizer, which is why she helps him. Athy wonders why Claude would have used dark magic. Her mother comes to mind. Lucas says that Athy's mana might have turned back Claude's time to 9 years ago, to back when he was affected by his dark magic. Athy says turning back time is impossible, but Lucas shocks her by saying she already did it more than once. A memory appears in Athy's head. Lucas doesn't say it, but he mentally corrects that statement. Athy already went back 2 times. The first time with the news, due to ill circumstance. The second time because of pills, due to despair. It seems he knows about Athy's previous lives, and there wasn't just one, as she thought. Lucas says he won't be able to break Claude's curse by force. It will have to be broken by either one or multiple triggers. He couldn't care less if this guy dies. He didn't when his own mother and father died, so why would he now? But seeing Athy cry, he decides he will have to work hard. He recommends that Athy stays close to him, hoping that Claude's interest in her will help. If Claude only stays with Jennette, he will die. Athy thinks about the novel. She remembers that dream where Claude died. But there's no way, right? Lovely Princess couldn't end like that. Lucas interrupts her and complains that he has to do all the work now. Athy glares at him. What do you want, a kiss? Lucas immediately scoots over and points to his cheek. Athy is deeply unwell, but agrees. The sight scares Lillian so bad she screams. Felix immediately comes to protect her, but Lucas is already gone. Athy visits Claude every morning to drink tea with him. Claude doesn't remember how he used to order cake for her, but then she sips on the tea her mother used to love. She says it tastes like flowers are blooming in her mouth. Claude looks up, then the pain sets in again. Before he can complain, Athy starts munching on some food. Claude is confused, but she shuts him down by putting cake into his mouth. Let's just say he isn't a fan of sweets. He sends Athy out, but doesn't seem particularly mad. Anastasia drinks some tea with Duke Alpheus and Jennette. He uses his fake name, Viscount Patterson. He seems a bit surprised hearing about a magician by the princess's side. Lucas senses someone might be talking about him. Someone might also have broken into his magic tower, but for now he won't chase that rat, but do research, so that he might be able to help Athy. A baby Claude walks around the palace, hiding from the guards. He spots his brother by the gate of the palace. He tugs on his sleeve. Brother? Anastasia snaps out of his trance. He doesn't remember how he got there. He says it felt like someone was calling for him. As he glances at Claude, he thinks his mother must have harmed him again. He rustles through his brother's hair and beams at him. Let's skip class together. Claude wakes up after a weird dream, rubbing his forehead. Athy genuinely considers hitting him with a heavy object to get his head working again. His protection magic makes her reconsider. For now, she has to endure an uncomfortable tea party with him and Jennette. Well, she is uncomfortable. Jennette is happy and Claude barely seems to listen. Jennette offers Claude some pralines and he, surprisingly, accepts them. He doesn't even frown, in contrast to last time. Athy takes it personally. Felix explains it's normal for Claude to hide his emotions in public though. That he revealed them in front of Athy shows his trust. Ijekiel visits. He offers Athy his support, whatever she needs. He also specifies that Jennette is like a sister to him, which confuses Athy. Athy praises him for being so caring and kind, but he corrects and says he's only this kind to her. It's obvious what he implies. But Lucas interrupts, so Athy can spare her reply. He immediately demands all of her attention and shows off how close they are. Ijekiel takes revenge by kissing Athy's hand. Lucas considers killing him. Those two are now officially in conflict. Athanasius is confused why Ijekiel likes her. Yes, he did have a crush on her when they were young, but by now he should have fallen for Jennette. So why does she remember meeting him? A blurry memory when he was introduced as Jennette's fiancé, but could merely stare at Athy and only her. Lucas snaps her out of her memories, asking what she is thinking about. Her mana is doing weird things, so she has to stop. He tells her not to give up again and worries since she did it once before. Athy admits she thought about Ijekiel, and Lucas gets all jealous. He says he can be a gentleman too and kisses her hand. Athy is very affected. I fear my ship is not sailing, huh? Athy asks Lillian and Felix for advice on how people show their romantic interest. This gives us a small flashback of how they used to stand close together during balls. Lillian admits she hates dancing, so Felix is relieved he didn't ask her. Athy decides that she shouldn't focus on Lucas or Ijekiel, but her father now. She invites Claude, who doesn't mind her calling him dad anymore, to a boat ride. She also invites Jennette, so that Claude won't faint in the middle of the pond and leaves happily. Claude promptly thinks that this pond is a little dangerous. Maybe part of him remembers Athy falling into the water. As they get on the boat, everything seems fine. Claude closes his eyes for a moment. When he opens them, Jennette has fallen into the water, trying to save Athy's umbrella. Athy begs him to help her because she doesn't know any magic that can do so. She can technically teleport her away, but okay. Claude merely grabs her arm and tells her to sit down. He doesn't want her to get wet. Athy yells at him to save Jennette, and Claude only seems to remember her now. He uses his magic after all. Jennette thanks him, and he ignores her again until Athy snaps at him. Jennette smiles as she sees the two argue. They seem close, she thinks. Lucas notes that Athy seems less scared of her father now. Athy says it's because Claude is better now, but Lucas reminds her it's temporary. Lucas goes to sleep for a while and remembers a time when someone begged him to teach his heir, a tyrant. Lucas rejected him coldly, calling that young boy a weakling and useless at magic. A tyrant ended up being the greatest emperor of this empire's history, but Lucas still looks down on him. He starts teaching Athy magic as she begs to learn how to save people. He teaches her how to let objects float first. Meanwhile, Jennette is rambling about Athy. Ijekiel agrees he wants to meet her soon. Jennette says they feel similarly about her, but Ijekiel corrects her. He says his feelings are a bit different. Athy is the most precious thing to him right now. And strangely, he apologizes to Jennette. Athy sits in her father's office while studying. Claude helps her as she gets stuck and praises her for being so far in her studies. She wants to demonstrate her magic level, only to hold a book she lifted with magic at his face. Claude gently corrects her approach. This time, she manages to succeed. Claude praises her so softly that Athy can't help but grin in return. She says she's his daughter, so it's only natural. Claude's headache returns abruptly. He throws her out with a surge of anger. Alone in his room, Claude is confused. He remembers nothing about Athy, but yet, she's somehow so close to him. He used dark magic to forget her when he couldn't bring himself to kill her, but even now she keeps appearing before him, no matter how badly he treats her. It reminds him of Diana, who swore to never leave him even if he tried to scare her. Athy sits in her room, wondering about how her father can be a good ruler, but also someone who slaughtered everyone in Ruby Palace. It confuses her. She also wonders why his curse makes him worse whenever he sees her, and why Jennette eases that curse. Is that why the novel went the way it did? Then the real Amnesia died without ever knowing the true reason. At the thought, tears come to Athy's face. Why is she so affected? It almost feels like she experienced this herself. Athy keeps thinking about that dream she had, about how Claude died because Jennette couldn't actually heal him, and that mysterious man. She lines up the different versions of the story and realizes the only difference is when she met Claude. In the novel, it was a few years later, so maybe she broke that dark magic in this timeline by being by his side and winning him over slowly. Lucas explains that Claude used two kinds of dark magic. One to erase his emotions, which Lucas did too, and one to erase his memories. It was someone he truly wanted to forget, it seems. Most likely, that was Diana. Athy cries again, and Lucas swiftly tells her to stop. Then he admits that her father is close to death and upsets her even more. He distracts her by teaching her some more magic. Jennette is a bit dazed, lying in bed. She realizes she always assumed Ijekiel would be her fiancé later. He noticed too, that was why he rejected her. She wonders if she will have the happy ending she always longed for, or if it was her fault for not being as smart or as quick as everyone else. Maybe she would be loved if she had tried harder. She feels lonely. She goes out to get some air. Anastasius already sits outside though. He invites her to sit with him and even wraps a coat around her to keep her warm. Jennette feels comfortable around this man. He is different from other adults. However, Athanasius only sees something deep purple wrapping around her. He thought she would be useless, being too happy and innocent, but now some darker thoughts formed, so he might be able to use her properly. What a devious cliffhanger, but at least the next season continues right where we left off. Jennette admits she is unsure if Claude and Athy will welcome her with open arms. Anastasius thinks back to his own family. His mother, the Empress, who cried and screamed upon hearing that her husband had brought in an illegitimate child. She called for her son and ordered him to pay them back for this humiliation. He would have to become emperor. Only then would they regain their pride. But the voice reminds Anastasius not to let his emotions mess up their plan. Emotions can't get in the way of this. Anastasia's eyes turn red as he smiles at Jennette. He assures her that becoming close to Claude is worth a try. Jennette feels like he talked super differently and assumes he wants to enter conversation. She goes to leave, but not without offering him her ear if he ever wants to complain about his issues. Anastasia slams his hand onto her head with a little more force than expected. It seems he tried to pet her. Jennette is happy. Anastasia is confused. His hand glows in a faint purple. Athy and Jennette have tea with Claude again. As Athy walks past a pot with boiling tea, she knocks it over. Without thinking about it, Claude catches it to ensure that she doesn't get burned, injuring his hand in the process. Lucas comes to heal him as Jennette is sent away. He notes that Jennette's aura looked weird just now. Jennette tells Anastasia she feels a bit hurt about being sent away when she was worried as well. He supports her feelings and reminds her that she has to tell them her identity. Jennette hesitates because Athy's reaction was off that one time she asked. Anastasia assumes Athy must know who Jennette is, and that they only became friends due to manipulation, because he believes Athy must be as cunning as Claude. He wants to warn Jennette, but that voice stops him again. It tells him to just manipulate Jennette. Anastasia's eyes turn red. He assures Jennette she could be Empress too. Her lacking mana doesn't matter, he says, thinking about how Lucas mocked him. As long as you are a great ruler, that's enough. And Jennette would be an empress loved by her country and loving her people in return. The next day, Jennette visits the palace. She shows Anastasia her bracelet before, admitting that Athy bought it. Anastasia doesn't like using the same methods, but like with that ribbon he told Jennette to buy, he rests his fingers over the bracelet. It glows red. Anastasia hopes that the curse will finally swallow Claude whole. It's a shame he can't see it himself. He goes to sleep. That spell exhausted him. A knock makes him get up anyway. A teary Jennette stands before him. His Majesty, she whispers. Something happened to Claude, it seems. During the tea time, Claude suddenly choked up blood and fainted. Athy sits next to his bed, hoping for him to recover when Lucas calls for her. He tells her this was an assassination attempt and that he noticed a mana impact. It might be the same person who broke onto the tower and destroyed his things, but he has to find out more. For now, he makes Athy sleep and vows to protect her father. Anastasia tells Duke Alpheus that he should prepare to visit the palace. Claude will die soon after all. Roger asks why he didn't send such a curse earlier if he could do it. Anastasia remembers standing next to a blonde woman's bed as she died, as she begged him not to hate Claude. The dark fog offered him some strength, but he chose not to kill her as she would die anyway. He says he wasn't fully assimilated then, so he wasn't strong enough. Roger gets unwell. He hears that Anastasia attempts to take the throne. Is he planning to commit treason? Roger isn't fond of this and panics. Anastasia says he is the real heir anyway, so it's his throne. Then he raises his hand to the Duke's forehead as that red glow lights up. Roger's eyes turn red too. Ijekiel comes to ask his father about the rumors about the Emperor's critical condition. Roger coldly tells him it's none of his business. Ijekiel picks up on the change immediately. He offers his father some rum, and he agrees. But Roger never drinks while working, and he hates rum. In the office, Roger's nose starts bleeding. Anastasia realizes brainwashing him broke him. He might not last much longer, but it doesn't matter. That other personality argues with him, saying they should have done this earlier. Then Roger wouldn't have had time to defend himself with a magical item. But then again, it didn't do him any favors. A week passed. Athy hasn't left Claude's side. She receives countless letters inviting her or begging her for an audience. Everyone asks about her father. It seems someone leaked the fact that he was ill. The nobles are becoming unruly, so Athy must step in as the princess regent. As long as a council agrees with the decision, she will gain the authority to make political decisions. Just then, Jennette is called to the Duke's office. Next to Duke Alpheus, Anastasia gives all the important orders. He has something to tell her. Athy prepares for her public appearance. She greets the nobles at the council. Her heart beats in her chest as she suppresses the nervousness. Then she explains that she will help Claude with his duties from now on. A noble interrupts, thinking he can gain an advantage. Athy shuts him down coldly. I don't recall giving you permission to speak. The man stays quiet. All other nobles quickly sign their documents, agreeing with Athy. But then Duke Alfoy speaks. He asks, almost like he lost his mind, why His Majesty isn't here personally. Athy calmly admonishes him for distrusting her. Her father simply isn't in the mood, she says. It should be fine. Athy notices the man in dark robes behind Duke Alfoys. Before she can ask who he is, Duke Alfoys interrupts again. He asks why His Majesty isn't feeling well. Even worse, there are rumors His Majesty used dark magic and got sick because of it. Athy freezes in shock, but only for a moment. As all nobles hold their breath, she tells Duke Alfoys he will be punished for slandering their emperor. No matter what, she cannot overlook such impudence. A giggle sounds. Everyone turns to the source. It's the man in dark robes behind Duke Alfoys. He removes the coat. I'm just surprised how clever my niece has grown up to be. Anastasius is blonde again. His jewel eyes are blue. In an instant, everyone has recognized the late emperor, who isn't so late at all. Felix jumps between them to guard Athy, but Athy recovers quickly. Anastasius is impressed that she meets his gaze directly. He explains he has come to see if the rumors about Claude using dark magic are true, because if he did so, he can't be forgiven. Athy confronts him for repeating such baseless rumors too. She realizes this man might have cursed Claude. She wants to reveal that he is the one using dark magic, but what about Jennette? If people find out Anastasius used dark magic to create her, won't Jennette be locked away too? Before she can consider her options, Anastasius accuses her of being created through dark magic. It is why her mana was so unstable. It's a daring accusation, but all Claude has to do is prove him wrong by appearing, but he can't, can he? Athy lets out a sigh. She asks a guard to go fetch her father and the magician by his side. It's a plot, but Lucas will surely understand what she needs. And then, Anastasius can also prove why he stands here alive, when he should be dead. Could he perhaps have used a forbidden spell that will revive the dead? Anastasius, no. That person inside him can't meet Lucas. He knows Lucas would recognize him. And so, both Athy and Anastasius need time to play their cards. They agree to adjourn the meeting. As the council leaves, Anastasius also retreats. Athy orders him to stay and explain how he could survive. He merely says he fled after Claude stabbed him, but we see that a shadow loomed over him back then. It seems a different being saved him. Someone who wanted a stronger body. Someone who hates Lucas for being rejected. Someone who envies Athy for being powerful and being favored by that mage. Someone who would like to take over her body if possible. Eternitas, the Alga Obelia, the greatest emperor of the empire. Felix wishes to seize Anastasius, but as his mana flares up, Athy stops him. Anastasius is too dangerous, they can't do anything now. They have to let their worst enemy leave. Meanwhile, Lucas is using magic to keep Claude stable, but things are getting worse and worse. He hears what happens and immediately suggests killing Anastasius and Roger. Athy considers it, but says that will incriminate her father after everything that was said. She has to plot differently. Lucas brings up Jennette, and Athy is forced to admit what she knows about the other girl. She insists Jennette is not evil though. And truly, Jennette isn't happy. She sits on her bed and stares ahead. Roger comes in and reminds her that it might be hard, but Anastasius is her father, not Claude. Roger tells her to choose her real family, but Jennette still doesn't want to hate Athy. As her bracelet, the one Athy gifted her, breaks, she cries. Ijekiel sends a secret letter to meet Felix. He admits it seems like his father is being mind-controlled. He hopes to ask for forgiveness if this can be reversed. Felix says Athy and Claude will have to decide. Athy would be quite relieved if Duke Alfoys was mind-controlled, but she quickly gets worried as Felix relays that Jennette is worried about her. Jennette is still uncertain as she faces Anastasius. She asks why he didn't find her before if he knew who she was. He says he recognized her during the debutante. He had no idea her mother died though. He had intended to stay hidden and only revealed himself out of fear that Claude would harm her if the truth came out. Jennette is unsure. She believes this man, but she doesn't think Claude is evil. She wants to talk to Athy, but before she can, Duke Alfoys brings her to the palace. Anastasius introduces Jennette as his daughter. He claims they should stay in the palace now that their identities are revealed. Athy realizes he is hiding behind Jennette like a shield. Jennette can only focus on Athy's cold expression. As Anastasius brings Jennette to her new room, he says she will be the next emperor. He leaves and glances back. Eternitas notes that Anastasius' body is slowly dying due to Roger's attack. But Jennette's body is healthy. Luckily, Athy knocks on her window to get a chance to talk. It goes well at first, they hug and show that they care, but Jennette doesn't believe Athy when she says that Anastasius was lying. She asks if Claude was indeed using dark magic. The symptoms match up. As Athy rejects this, she is more confused. Her father always speaks to her and Athy never explains anything, so she needs time to think. Athy leaves. She tells Lucas, who calls Jennette a fool. Athy says that it makes sense for her to be hesitant when she was left in the dark for so long. And then Lucas spots her ribbon, the one she wore during the mana explosion. He blames Jennette. Athy quickly realizes Jennette was used though. The day she bought this, Anastasius was present. And Lucas recognizes the mana on the ribbon. It's Eternitas magic. Lucas said that that guy must have been using Anastasia's body, because Eternitas didn't have a lot of mana but now suddenly uses dark magic left and right. Jennette's mind is clouded with doubts. She goes to search for her father. Anastasius is talking to himself. His voice sounds like it's not coming from him. Jennette tries to leave but is stopped. Anastasius looks terrifying. He asks what she's doing here. She claims she couldn't sleep. He finds her annoying and thinks to himself, you should deal with her, and his eyes turn back blue. Anastasius suddenly seems much kinder and offers to let her in. Jennette rejects him and leaves as quickly as she can. Meanwhile, Lucas admits that some of his mana was stolen centuries ago while he slept. He presumes it was Eternitas who gave it to Anastasius. He is quite upset with those impudent fools, especially with that loser Eternitas whom he looks down on so much. Athy worries about Jennette more. Clearly, Anastasius wants to make her empress, so Athy has to make her reject the throne. But will Jennette even trust her? She hasn't paid enough attention to her until now, has she? Athy wonders if she did something wrong. She thought she could be happy this time. Lucas immediately wants to hurl himself at her to push the negative thoughts away, but Athy stays calm. She suggests using the fruit of the world tree to heal Claude. Lucas retrieves that branch he found. This could work. He focuses on it. Athy asks him to wait and reaches for the branch, but Amnesia finds herself in a clear blue sky. Before her, a crystal white tree that stretches impossibly high. The world tree. A second later, she wakes up back in a normal world. Lucas yells at her for touching that branch when it could have hurt her badly. She takes a moment to shake the effect of the tree, but is overjoyed anyway. The tree told her how she could save her father. Lucas isn't convinced. He doesn't care about Claude and he would rather kill Eternitas right now than wait here. He also doesn't want Athy to risk her life. He tells her she can't let the Empire lose its princess and its emperor. As if to underline his words, Athy has a vision of a destroyed, burning city. No building is left standing, no soul to be found as ashes cover the sky. Will this happen if Claude dies? But the world tree said that her father would recover. It was so comforting, she can't help but believe it. Athy focuses on keeping the aristocrats in check. Even as they become unruly, she threatens them to keep still. Even as people start selling weapons and enemies of Claude gather armies. Anastasius finds it amusing. However, he underestimates Athy. She won't budge or let him win easily. She tells Lucas about her vision. Lucas won't admit it, but he thinks he might destroy the empire if Athy comes to harm. It's unlikely Anastasius would ruin his own empire, but for Lucas it's an option. He knows the world tree is the best bet to wake Claude up, and yet he doesn't want Athy to use it. But Athy is sure. She also tells him they don't have to worry about Jennette, because she already met her. Amnesia apologized for lying. She clarified that she knew who Jennette was, but didn't acknowledge it because she was scared of losing her position, of being disappointed again, so she never allowed herself to hope. Jennette cries immediately. She apologizes for not understanding and thinking about herself. She is so kind that she worries about Athy despite receiving an apology in the first place. Athy cries too. Not only that, Jennette also confirms that her father is sometimes puppeted by some other power. Lucas is still hesitant to trust her, but more than that, he refuses to let Athy risk her life to save Claude. But Amnesia explains that she finally realized that her life in the modern world and the Athy in the novel are both her. She asked Jennette to take over the empire if she dies, so she has done all she can. Lucas hates it, but he can't convince her otherwise. Felix also tries to make her change her mind, but Athy has no other choice. She trusts that she won't fail. Still, just in case, she writes a letter to Lillian and to Ijekiel. Then Athy prepares the ritual. They move Claude to a magic realm. Lucas wants her to keep her focus. She is essentially throwing her soul into the very essence of this world, so if she gets mixed up, she might get lost. She cannot forget her name or who she is, not even for 1 second. Lucas holds her hand. They activate the magic. Athy floats through a blur of colors. Voices and sounds come from everywhere, like every part of this world is right next to her at the same time. Even as everyone is praying for her head is splitting. But throughout the chaos, she hears 3 distinct voices. A man from a modern world asking who she is, an executioner reading out the name of the guilty one, Lucas asking her to say her name. She opens her eyes. I'm Amnesia de Alga Obiria. A blinding light appears before her. A hand reaches out for her and pulls her close. It's a blonde woman, wearing a dancer's robe. It's Mom. Diana presses 100 kisses to Athy's face and hugs her. She can't help it. This is the first time she got to hug her daughter. She says she is so proud of Athy, who fought so hard to make it to this point. Diana waited here to be able to meet her. The other part of her soul was always with Claude and her though. Athy says she has to save Claude. Diana promises he is fine. He was with her ever since he fainted. He knows everything that happened and is also very proud of Athy. Diana says she was worried about those two, so she couldn't leave. But now she's ready after talking to Athy one last time. She points toward the black mass that has formed next to them. She tells Athy to destroy it with the tree branch she brought. Diana asks her to thank Lillian and Felix for raising her all this time. Then she gives Athy one final hug. Lucas is impatiently waiting for Athy to awaken. It's ridiculous that he is so dependent on someone after centuries of not feeling anything, he thinks. Just as he turns, it's like glass splinters. The curse was broken. Claude wakes, but Athy doesn't. Lucas panics, but just then Claude raises his index finger to ask him to be quiet. It seems Athy is merely sleeping for a bit longer. Athy sees visions of Claude's past, his most important memories. First, when he was in bed with a fever as a small child. Anastasius came over just to console him, looking at his brother with care. But mere years later, he said he hated him, that he felt mocked by Claude. His eyes had a slight red gleam. As Claude's mother got sicker, she apologized for her low station, for leaving Claude alone in this hostile environment. And then Penelope also left Claude's side to be with Anastasius. But Claude only broke when he found his mother dead, just after Anastasius had visited her. He killed his brother, became emperor, and met Diana. Hundreds of beautiful memories follow. And then pain. Pain so difficult to endure that Athy is relieved when it disappears. That must have been when Claude lost Diana and used dark magic to suppress his emotions. But after that, all color has disappeared. Everything is boring and lonely, until there's Athy. Athy. Athy, Athy, Athy. The world with her seems so colorful. She is with Claude every day, her smile lighting up everything. With every smile, the curse cracked more. Every time she almost died, it shattered more. And then there was only Athy left. Claude wished for nothing but for her to be happy and healthy. To the very day Claude jumped into the mana storm to save Athy, where he realized he would give his life for her. Athy opens her eyes. You're up, Amnesia. Hello, Dad. Athy rests in bed to recover. Claude says it's strange she saved someone as horrible as him. Before she can talk back, he says her mother scolded him for saying exactly that. Athy gets mad anyway. After all that happened, Claude has to tell her something. Something he might not have said for a while. Claude hesitates. He says he shouldn't have done such a thing, and dances around the issue until he finally breaks. His voice cracks, and for the first time he cries. He apologizes to Athy for everything he has done. Athy cries as well. She throws herself at him, cursing him out for trying to kill her, for humiliating her and for neglecting her for so long. And then she falls into his arms as he consoles her. Felix is overjoyed to see Claude again. He even cried the first time, which Claude immediately teases him about. They plan what to do next. Claude has intense ideas on how to deal with unruly nobles, but they will have to move slowly and hide that he used dark magic. Athy happily introduces Lucas as the mage of the tower. Claude is, surprisingly, not surprised. Lucas, Felix and Claude want to crush their enemies as soon as possible, while Athy is a bit worried about the Empire. But nonetheless, they prepare to fight. Ijekiel visits Anastasius. He asks to let his father take a break since he is feeling unwell. Anastasius says Roger can leave once they did the verification to determine if Claude used dark magic. For that, they have to put a drop of his blood onto a magic circle. But as he speaks, he realizes Ijekiel is holding something. A magic artifact. Before Ijekiel can use it, Anastasius attacks him, holding his hand to his throat. However, blood drips from Anastasius' hand where he touched Ijekiel. He pushes him away. Red mana appears all over Ijekiel's body, protecting him. Anastasius instantly recognizes it as Lucas's. This was all a ploy. Anastasius flares up with anger. He attacks Ijekiel, just as planned. He turns away and leaves a blind spot for Lucas. Lucas captures him with ice, making him fall to his knees. He directly addresses their enemy, calling him out for using his descendant's body. Anastasius says he can't hurt a member of the imperial family. Lucas says he won't. He abruptly releases the other man, pulling him up. We got what we needed. He holds a shard of ice with Anastasia's blood inside. They waste no time. They immediately hold the verification ceremony, teleporting all nobles to the palace. Lucas makes sure they have their attention. Anastasius notices that Carax, as he calls the being inside him, isn't responding. It might be hiding from Lucas. Athy starts the ceremony. The air around them turns black as she announces that none other than her uncle used dark magic. She will have him arrested, and everyone who wishes to help him should be arrested as well. Anastasius laughs. He doesn't fight back though. He just stands there. Athy asks him for his last words, but he has none. They teleport him to a cell. Anastasius sits there quietly. He tentatively asks after some time, "You don't need me anymore?" It seems Etanitas is ignoring him. Athy tells Claude the news. He is glad things went by smoothly and says he can kill Anastasius if it becomes necessary later. For now he thanks Athy for dealing with the state affairs and praises her for doing a good job. She says she's his daughter, it's only logical. Claude smiles back and says she's better than him. However, some documents do need fixing. Athy is flooded with gifts and apology letters, revealing that the nobles are desperate for her trust again. They also ask for Duke Alpheus to be punished, but Athy is hesitant since he was mind-controlled. Then she sees Jennette, who wants to meet her father. Athy is unsure, but then notices that Jennette's hair has been carelessly brushed. The maids are bullying her, it seems. Athy stays by her side to make sure that people understand where she stands. They climb down to the cells. However, as they arrive, Anastasius is bleeding heavily. Now both Anastasius and Duke Alpheus lie in a room being healed by Lucas, who complains about having better things to do. It seems Roger might wake up soon, but they are unsure about Anastasius. Just as they think that, Roger jumps up. He grabs Jennette and pulls her toward him, aiming a glass shard toward Anastasius as if to defend them. He yells at her to run away, to get away from that dangerous man. Jennette tries to calm him, but to no avail. And just then, Anastasius opens his eyes. Just in time to see Roger waving a glass shard towards Jennette. He screams at the Duke to let her go. Lucas knocks both of them out with a spell. A few minutes after, Athy explains that Roger was worried about Jennette. Jennette seems doubtful, but just then the Duke stumbles toward her, asking if she is fine. She starts crying as he pats her head. Athy is happy at the sight. She finds herself worrying about the way Anastasius acted though. He seemed worried about Jennette too. Weird. Meanwhile, the nobles who spoke out against the imperial family have gathered at the palace despite not being granted an audience. They wish to apologize to the princess to protect her power, especially one young man, the one who disrespected Athy during that first council meeting, seems upset. He mutters that she will regret ignoring him. Dark mist rises around him as he stumbles through the garden, and approaches Athy and Claude. Etanitas fumes about almost losing. Now he had to take over a weak body without any mana. He should kill the Emperor while that guy is still weakened, he thinks. If Lucas catches him, he can just throw away this body. He mutters to himself as Athy stops him. "You coward, talking behind my back, mocking me." His words are a little familiar to Claude. This man sounds like Anastasius when they were little. Eternitas keeps muttering. He says Athy stands there so arrogantly, but if he got his hands on her, she would tremble in fear. Claude covers Athy's eyes. He tells her to let him handle this, then throws that bastard to the floor with his mana. First, this guy interrupted his vacation, and then he insulted Athy. Claude stomps on him, crushing those hands he wanted to hurt the princess with. At this point, there's blood. Oh no, how horrible. For some reason, Athy stops him. She tells Claude to lock the man up instead of killing him. Lucas gets involved and kneels down before the man. He greets Eternitas, who promptly disappears. But it's okay. Lucas knows where he's going, and then they can seal him in that body and bury them together, body and spirit, never to be seen again. Claude needs a quick summary of what happened. All he cares about is what happens to the people Eternitas takes over though. He hears that they coexist, so everything that happened was his brother's wish. That's not a good thing, but at least his wrath wasn't misguided. To figure out what will happen now, they arrange a meeting. Anastasius is already at the table, Jennette next to him. Athy assumes Eternitas, or Carax as Anastasius calls him, is already back in his body, but Claude faces them anyway. I don't know who Aura farms more, the characters or Spoon's incredible art, but either way, our eyes are blessed. Anastasius asks why Claude isn't killing him already, being all smug. Claude says there is no need to rush, but first, he waves his hand. Jennette screams as a magic circle appears before her. It's not Claude's, it's Anastasius who jumped up to protect her. Claude says he wondered. His brother always switched, jumping from kindness to violence and betrayal. He did all he could to provoke Claude, almost like he wanted to be killed. And Anastasius admits it. Yes, he was deceived by an evil spirit. He was always jealous, but he cherished his younger brother. He wanted to die to get rid of that spirit. He wanted to protect Claude, so please, won't he forgive him? His eyes flicker red as he abruptly grabs Jennette's arm and throws her at Claude. An explosion echoes through the room. Lucas protected everyone, but Anastasius clearly tried to use Jennette as a weapon to kill everyone here. It seems Eternitas is ready to throw it all away just to win. Lucas will keep him in check though. So, Lucas takes a deep breath and apologizes. Sorry, you're not half bad. After all, Athy asked if he could try to lead Eternitas into the afterlife, to let his grudge fade so that he can move on instead of them needing to seal him. But Eternitas scoffs. He says Lucas is still as arrogant as ever. Lucas still holds out his hand. It's not too late for Eternitas to purify himself. He can return to the cycle of reincarnation and be reborn. Lucas would gladly accept him as an apprentice then. After all, when they first met, Eternitas was weak, but not evil. Eternitas covers his face. How could you say this after all this time? He says his life was a nightmare ever since that day. Everyone is slightly confused that this is working. Lucas offers to help him. Again, it works. Eternitas gives up on Anastasia's body. That body collapses as the spirit floats up and slowly comes towards Lucas. It rests in his palm and jumps into Jennette. Everyone takes cover as Lucas yells. Eternitas moves Jennette's body like a marionette. He forms as a shadow above her, blaming Lucas for becoming like this. Lucas snaps back and says this isn't his fault, but that doesn't matter. Eternitas wants to use Jennette's mana to kill everyone. Lucas says they might have to seal Jennette along with that spirit, but Athy stops him. That foggy spirit seems to hover over Jennette, but it isn't in her body, in contrast to what it did to her father. Eternitas can't seem to take her over. Why? Because no matter how much she whispers to her and says that Athy is her enemy, Jennette says that isn't true. Athy jumps forward, raising her arms to hug Jennette. Jennette welcomes her, as a smile appears on her face. A golden glow appears, pushing Eternitas away. He has nowhere left to go. Anastasius is still bleeding on the floor. He pushes himself up with a grin. He already said Jennette wouldn't be an easy target. She is far too strong. Now the spirit can only return to his body and die alongside him. It was about time. But I didn't know dying was your hobby. Claude stands before him, blocking the path for Eternitas. He gives Lucas the order. And Lucas finally destroys that spirit with a wide grin. Eternitas blames him until the very end. Then he fades away, leaving only a ruined dining hall and a very dysfunctional family. Felix and the knights storm in, just in time to find Anastasius alive. Claude tells them to arrest him for treason, and swiftly he is taken away. Days pass. Claude returned to acting as the emperor. The nobles trip over their feet to butter him up. The former traitors tore each other apart, dissolving their armies rapidly. Their leader, Anastasius, was sentenced to execution. Jennette was found innocent. Because he was brainwashed, Duke Alpheus was also spared, but some of his assets were seized. 3 days later, the former emperor, Anastasius, was executed. Though, you might be interested to hear that Jennette is leaving the empire with a bright smile, accompanied by a man with black hair and eyes, a certain Viscount Patterson. Jennette had knelt before the emperor and the princess, begging them to let her father live. He had been influenced by that evil spirit, so she hoped for him to be pardoned. And Claude told Athy to decide. He also said that Jennette could stay in the palace if she wanted to, but Jennette decided to leave. She asked Lucas to get rid of her jewel eyes so that she will never be recognized. Jennette bids her farewell and promises to meet Athy again tearfully. By the way, Athy can teleport, so it's not like meeting even across the continent is a problem, but that isn't mentioned. Just then, Claude comes. The atmosphere is tense. Anastasius asks his brother if he wishes to kill him. Claude says, Athy told me we should reconcile, and just blames his entire idea on his daughter. He himself would never suggest that, of course. Promptly, Jennette chimes in and says she wants them to reconcile too. So, Anastasius has no choice but to agree. Then the carriage leaves. Anastasius covers his face, and Jennette asks if he's crying. He is scandalized and quickly says he's upset. How can Claude still be such an idiot after ruling for so long? Letting a traitor live is dangerous. In other words, he is worried. But for now, both he and Jennette are happy. And as Athy and Claude reach a tower, they wave towards the carriage. Jennette happily waves back. Anastasius thinks his brother is becoming stranger after having a daughter, but Jennette forces him to wave as well. The sight makes Claude start laughing. His brother is becoming strange after having a daughter, he says. They all smile as they bid each other farewell. Athy has a nice dream. She sees both Diana and Claude picking her up when she was a much younger child, but then she wakes up. In the palace, everything seems to have returned to normalcy, but Athy still has a lot to do. Claude wants to officially announce her as the crown princess, so they prepare that event. That's when Ijekiel, the newly appointed Duke Alpheus, visits. He's happy to talk to Athy and explains he recovered after using Lucas's mana that last time. Speaking of the devil, Lucas chimes in too. Ijekiel flirts with Athy a bit, and Lucas gets jealous. A few days later, Lucas tries to regain an advantage by giving Athy a blue rose. Correction, a few dozen roses. Athy knows that both guys like her now, but she is unsure what to do about it. Meanwhile, Jennette sends a letter. She seems to be well, living in a busy city. Athy hopes to visit her soon, but only after her coronation as the crown princess. Claude is planning the super big event a few months in advance, seemingly intending to give Athy what he never had. As she asks to visit Jennette, he agrees. Surprisingly, he also wants to come though. Lucas is annoyed that Athy is studying so much and wants her to spend time with him instead. Athy notices his clothing style is much more formal than before. He immediately asks if she likes it. She agrees, and so his clothes become even flashier. Then they go out for a walk. He admits he got that branch of the world tree not for himself, but for Athy. Now that she has absorbed part of it, she will have a very long life. Athy doesn't dare ask how long that will be. As Lucas's tie chokes him, Athy gently reaches over to loosen it. For a moment their faces are a bit too close. Then Lucas asks if she likes his hair or his face. Athy gets embarrassed and quickly runs away. Lucas follows her though and makes her finish tying his ribbon. But just a few days later, Ijekiel visits. He discusses some tax issues with Athy and then jokes about their shared secret, about back when she fell from the sky in front of him. He still loves having that secret with her, and Athy finds herself a little affected too. It seems she keeps getting swayed between those two. So she asks Felix and Lillian, who tell her it's most important to feel comfortable with someone, to like spending time with them. She asks Claude what he liked about her mother too. He catches himself before responding and asks why she needs to know this. It seems he figured it out. Claude remains relatively calm, but then coldly makes her deal with more work, to keep her from spending her free time with those guys. Athy takes the time to reflect on her reincarnations. She assumes she must have imagined the novel, to explain her first life to herself. Lucas explains that she was simply born with the mana that allows her to reincarnate like this and then invites her for dinner. When she arrives, he already prepared a boat and laid out a dozen flowers. He holds out his hand for her, calls her beautiful, and then lets even more flowers grow. It seems he is trying hard to impress her. Athy asks if he's trying to imitate Ijekiel. Lucas is less pleased, suddenly speaking like normal again. He shows Athy a romance novel she once read and admits he tried to copy that. Athy can't help but laugh. Lucas is a bit pouty, but actually he is glad Athy is happy again. But ultimately, Athy finds herself caught in the middle of those two handsome guys, needing to decide. She asks Claude again, "Dad, what if someone likes—" "You're still a baby." That's all Claude tells her on the matter. She is far too young, so she shouldn't think about this. He even scolds Felix once Athy leaves and reminds him that it's his task to chase away any of the flies coming too close to Athy. But Athy already wants to work this out. She goes to Lucas first, wondering how to ask what he actually likes about her. Lucas chases away the person he was talking to as soon as he spots Athy and beams at her. He admits he isn't fond of nobles, but doesn't mind mages when she asks about the person who left. Athy quickly asks what this means for her, since she is a noble too. Lucas says he doesn't mind, even if she is greedy or ambitious like the others. He calls her ugly again too, so Athy pretends to pout and makes him take it back. She asks the deadliest question, "Do you think I'm pretty?" Lucas jokes out that she isn't bad looking. She asks if he likes her because of that. He gets a bit red as he confesses that he likes her because he feels the need to protect her, because it's fun to be with her. Athy gives a rather mature response. She says Lucas was her friend for so long, she can't immediately accept or reject him. But she is willing to go out on a few more dates with him to figure out her feelings. Lucas insists on having their next date right now. Meanwhile, Ijekiel receives a letter from Athy. He is immediately charmed. His father warns him that this might not work out, but Ijekiel says he can't change his heart. Lucas brings Athy flowers. He tries even harder to get into her good graces now and avoids calling her ugly. As she ponders about the mysterious message the World Tree left her, he tells her not to ruin her hair, pulls her hand away, and kisses her fingers. Athy's heart flutters. She even keeps thinking about it during her meal with Claude. He notices and isn't necessarily pleased, but he does tell her to do what she wishes, even if he grits his teeth during it and reminds her that she's quite busy after. The next 6 months pass quickly. The coronation ceremony is just about to happen. Claude notes that this makes him a bit sad. Athy is confused but holds back the question, at least until the day arrives and they all get dressed up. Here, Claude unwillingly admits that he is sad Athy grew up so quickly. Now it seems like she's gonna be independent and leave him soon. Athy starts crying. Claude tries to console her, just as Lucas and Ijekiel show up, just in time to hear Athy loudly announce that she doesn't have to get married. She'll just stay with her dad forever. Lucas is less pleased. Ijekiel is happy. He says this grants him more time to fight for Athy. And Claude is probably the happiest of everyone. He's literally glowing as he kneels before Athy and holds her hand. She is taken away to fix her makeup from that crying, only for him to glance at Lucas and Ijekiel. He says he should use this opportunity to get those flies off Athy, though he at least accepts that she can't stay with him forever. But she's still a child in his eyes, at least for now. He leads Athy into the ceremony hall. And there, as the people mutter and whisper, Amnesia steps forward confidently. She kneels as the priest gives a long speech. Then the emperor himself picks up the heavy crown and places it onto her head. Hereby he declares Amnesia the Alga Obelia the crown princess of their empire. The nobles applaud, among them many familiar faces. The commoners before the balcony applaud as well as Amnesia faces them. In contrast to a few months ago, she isn't scared. She thanks Claude for protecting her. She is happy now, and Claude says that's all he has to hear. The capital is celebrating. The Emperor and the Crown Princess drive through the streets in an open carriage, waving to the common folk. Everyone seems joyous. Amnesia cannot help but shine as brightly as the sun, when, among the many roses offered to her, one stands out. Athy reaches for it. She meets the person's gaze, and just for a second, she sees a glimpse of brown hair. Then the carriage has already passed them. She looks at Claude, who merely says he already knows. It seems he had Jennette and Anastasia's brought here for just a split second. And just as the perfect ending is close, it becomes even more perfect. Blue confetti falls from the sky, shards from the world tree itself. It creates a glow around Athy and whispers to her, "Keep walking down the path you believe in." With a single sentence, it destroys all her worries about making the wrong choices. As the holy light marks her, the audience yells with joy. Their empire has been blessed. Long live the Crown Princess. Once upon a time, there was a princess with eyes of a jeweled gleam. She was kind and gentle and beloved by everyone. She and those she loves lived happily forever after as she ruled as a wise empress. The storybook shuts. This is the end of Lovely Princess. What a great ending. And because this isn't great enough, we also get side stories. Woo! Athy sits on the balcony and is bored. She wants to go to an amusement park. Lucas doesn't know what that is, and she summarizes it as a place where you are lifted up and down and thrown all around. Predictably, Lucas responds by teleporting her into thin air and letting her drop down. He catches her, but Athy is still mad. She says she is scared when she can't hold onto anything. Lucas links their hands before he tips them over the roof of a building. They jump around quite a bit as Athy allows herself to have fun. Lucas is relieved to see her happy after she has been so overworked these past few days. To thank him, Athy leans over and kisses his cheek. Lucas gives her a mere second before he leans in and presses his lips to hers, first once, then twice. Athy is terribly embarrassed, but he just laughs. The small estate is more than busy. The servants scatter around, decorating everything. They praise their beautiful mistress, saying that she is even so kind that she feels bad taking eggs from their hens, much to her father's dismay. Then a carriage appears. A man resembling the master of the house, but with blonde hair, steps out. Then a young lady. The servants are overwhelmed by the beauty of this guest, not knowing that she is the princess. Jennette beckons the two in and leads them around. Anastasius appears to greet them. And just to greet them. He notes that they have arrived and then turns around and leaves. Jennette admits he took extra care preparing for the guests though, even if he acts distant now. Apparently, he had nightmares about Claude coming to kill him for the first few months here, but is better now in general. The next day, Jennette and Athy decide to visit the market. They are surprised that Claude and Anastasius will join them. They go to the bustling port and eat their way around the stalls. Anastasius gets a little concerned with how much food Athy and Claude are devouring, but then a group of scammers tries to trick Athy into dealing with them. Claude reacts as expected, and when they try to make fun of him, he can't leave well enough alone. He throws all his money on the table and says the scammer should bet his hand in return. Needless to say, Claude is very willing to collect his prize once he does win. At least he says that, but then notes that he doesn't want Athy to see something so vile. He merely aims the knife between those guys' fingers. It's no surprise that the next time, when Athy isn't there and those scammers threaten them, Claude is less gentle. Ignore that headband, Jennette and Athy made them wear those. We don't see that though, we just hear Anastasius ask him not to kill them. Meanwhile, Athy and Jennette are bothered by some drunk guys. Athy deals with them relatively quickly though. A couple days later, Athy asks her father how to use magic to transfer memories. He let her see her mother a few times, and she wonders if Anastasius could do the same for Jennette. Anastasius is less convinced and says he has no mana left. Since he's an enemy of the crown, it's better this way, and Athy doesn't listen to him and tries to transfer some of her mana to him. It doesn't work though, since she isn't practiced enough. Anastasius even thinks she almost killed him. So, Athy makes Claude do it. Anastasius doesn't really want to hold his hand, but Claude essentially calls him a weakling, so it's a matter of pride. At least Anastasius can make Jennette happy now. He tries not to ruin her opinion of her mother and chooses to call Penelope brave with eyes that sparkle towards a dream, when he means she was a power-hungry person who would seduce her fiancé's brother to become empress. Penelope was quite cold-hearted in his memory. She feared nothing. Well, nothing aside from cockroaches. She would probably abandon him and Jennette in their current situation. And still, Anastasius liked her a lot. He is pulled from his memory. As Claude appears before him with 2 glasses and some alcohol, he figures they should talk. Athy and Jennette sit outside the window and eavesdrop, just as Claude and Anastasius start hitting each other. It turns into a full-on brawl as those 2 grown adult men seemingly vent all their frustrations about every little thing that ever happened between them. The next morning, both Claude and Anastasius are still hungover and extremely exhausted from that fight. Athy assumes this is their way of making up. Back in the palace, Felix is quite bored because he has no work to do. He offers to help some maids who flirt with him, but he gently lets them down. He runs into Lillian, who has lost a pendant with Athy's picture inside, and is quite embarrassed when he admits he found it and looked inside. Lillian has to correct him. It's Diana's picture, not Athy's. Felix says that isn't strange either. After all, Diana was a precious friend. Lillian thinks back to how she was mocked by the nobles for being so close to a foreign dancer. Her father attempted to force her into a marriage with a much older man, when Lillian received the imperial decree to become the princess's maid. So in truth, taking care of Diana's child was not only a sign of devotion to her friend, but also a chance to choose her own life. Lillian and Felix stare at each other. For the first time, it feels like she looks at him properly. She blushes. Years ago, the dancers had a feast the day before their big celebration. They warned each other about the dangerous emperor, and Diana decided to be cautious, just to run after the blonde man she met on the street a few days prior, as soon as she catches a glimpse of him. He looks quite tired. She keeps babbling unhappily, not knowing that Claude assumes she might be trying to kill him. She says that she got lost, and when he tells her how to return, she decides that he is kind and tries to give him a gift. Claude accepts it, knowing that his magic will kill her should she attempt to harm him. It turns out she only offered him candy though. He doesn't like candy. With that, Diana leaves. She only finds out who he is during the banquet, where she had to dance for him. After that, Claude drags her away. Everyone expects her to die, but Claude just makes her tell him some stories so that he can fall asleep. When he eventually wakes up again, she notes that he seems lonely. Claude silences her by kissing her. Diana assumes he is trying to scare her, but to her, he seems like a hedgehog balling up to defend itself. She melts and throws her arms around him. The next morning, Diana wakes up. Claude immediately offers her water and then says he will fulfill any wish she could have. Instead of the gold he expected her to ask for, she wants to eat breakfast with him and then go on a walk. During that walk, she tries to grab his hand. He pulls away, but she swiftly tells him that her legs are shaking and she is so weak. She needs help. This time, Claude lets her cling to him. As they eat together, Diana starts feeding him. She feels like he is neglecting himself when she isn't, so she keeps getting new food for him. Even more years ago, Claude and Anastasius found themselves wanting to feed a cat. The cat ended up avoiding them though. Even when it comes closer to their picnic, it runs away. One day the two follow the cat and run into Roger Alpheus, who is also much younger. They seem elated that he can handle the cat and lets them pet it. Back in the present, Roger is boiling because he has to pay for the furniture Claude and Anastasius broke during their drinking session. He is happy to chat about Jennette's crafting skills as she makes dolls and handkerchiefs though, hoping to advertise those among the nobles. Roger thinks back. That cat they found back then is long dead, and Claude and Anastasius became estranged around that time. But maybe time can fix that too. Everything seems to be going the right way. Ijekiel visits the royal library. He makes eye contact with Athy, whose smile lights up. He takes a moment longer and then admits he wasn't sure if she was a hallucination for a moment. He just missed her so much. They take the opportunity to chat a little. Apparently, Jennette opened a workshop. It's quite famous. Her father even helps her and makes sure her items get sold and no annoying flies come too close to her. Ijekiel notices that he feels Lucas's mana on Athy. He gets a little jealous and remembers that his father told him to give up. But Ijekiel won't do so. Not yet. He says Athy hasn't ever rejected him, so he will keep being here as long as his heart can bear it. The last two side stories give us a sweet what-if story. If Diana had survived childbirth, Claude would have been a much happier person. Athy would have been doted on by both parents every day of her life. Jennette, Ijekiel, and Lucas would have come to be her childhood friends, and those two guys would have fought over her. But in the end, Diana would have gotten Athy's first dance during her debutante. She would also have made sure that her beloved daughter wouldn't have to choose, but granted her 2 husbands. The first thing I'm going to say is that I was surprised just how much I liked the series. I started Who Made Me a Princess as one of the first manhwa I ever read years ago, and found myself really enjoying it. I put it on a back burner, hoping it would be finished soon, and then read 100 different series. Returning to it, I kinda expected it to have aged poorly. I saw a lot of posts about how cliché it is, how toxic some characters are, how badly executed the romance is. And then I read it, and don't really agree with any of that. Who Made Me a Princess is a pretty good work that stays true to its premise, wrapped in a bow with the godlike art of Spoon. In my eyes, the story is no ethos of super complicated storytelling or multi-dimensional characters. It won't make you think too hard, nor will it make you question your own morality or knowledge. It will give you all the information directly and is rather straightforward. But in my eyes, the plot was decent to pretty good. There were no giant plot holes or any major flaws that hindered my enjoyment of it throughout. All the characters were likable/interesting, their motives made sense, and even the people that disagree with Athy are justified most of the time. The plot twists were always set up relatively early, so if you paid attention, you could guess most things just before they happened. This typically felt rewarding instead of confusing or overwhelming. I personally really liked the comedy as well and had to laugh at a lot of the scenes. Still, I shed some tears at the end and during specific emotional scenes. And if I may be so arrogant, most criticism I have seen is not necessarily about bad writing. Most points I would mark under "this has tropes I don't like," which is fair, but the story is still pretty solid in comparison to some of the convoluted messes I have had the displeasure of resting my eyes upon. Mentioning my eyes, the obvious point: the art. Spoon draws every single character with divine beauty or overwhelming cuteness. Just look at how majestic everyone is. I genuinely screenshotted every second image because I couldn't help myself. So many panels could be sold as posters straight out of the manhwa. Even the simpler drawings are gorgeous, and the chibis and the visual gags are great as well. I'd also like to thank Gora, S, and Semo, Spoon's assistants, for their service, because this is genuinely a masterpiece. And of course, everyone thanks Spoon herself, who admitted to working 12 to 14 hours a day to bring this to us. I don't think anyone can find a fault with the visual side of the story. To this day I see people praising the art, and for a good reason. And yet, unfortunately, I recently found out that this work attracted a lot of hatred once again. Most of it affected our poor artist, who was simply doing their job. I wish I didn't have to say this, but can people please stop harassing real artists and authors over stories? If you don't like it, that's fine. Say that respectfully if you must, but don't verbally abuse anyone. I think we're all tired of this by now, but it keeps happening. In this case, it seems to be because Who Made Me a Princess has become quite hated for some, and has been a long-time favorite for others. It gets the worst from both sides. So, what actually caused this backlash? There are a few points actually. Number 1. Plagiarism. I'm not going to go into details because this concerns the original novel and not the manhwa, but it seems that the novel of Who Made Me a Princess heavily plagiarized Daughter of the Emperor. Not just based on the tyrant dead trope, but also in many details, the word choice, down to a few copied sentences. Allegedly, of course. There was never a court ruling, but this brought negative attention. Now, of course, this isn't Spoon's fault. They adapted the manhwa, but they had nothing to do with the novel. But this problem might have directly impacted Number 2. Change of the story and characters. Spoon changed a lot when adapting the novel. This starts with changing character development and background stories to changing entire arcs. They also changed complete characters like Jennette, who was originally not such a good person. People who liked the novel weren't fond of that, which I get. I've had my fair share of adaptations that completely changed the source material I loved, and I was never really happy about that. But to be honest, I think the changes here were quite beneficial. I haven't read the novel, but everything I've read makes me appreciate the manhwa more. Spoon added a lot of depth to the characters, adding backstories and motivations to previously flat characters. They also made Athy face our antagonists directly and actually had her take charge, which apparently never happened in the novel. They also pushed back the romance and focused on family bonds, specifically Claude. As someone who read the story for that, I am grateful. Personally, I think the plot was about Athy finding her family. In Claude, but also in Lillian and Felix and Jennette. She will fall in love later, but that's not what matters. For now, she is happy in the safe space she has come to cherish. Given that I clearly favor one of the two male leads, maybe that's just my relief that he wasn't shafted, but even if someone dislikes all of this, I still don't think harassing Spoon is the answer. If you don't like the way the manhwa is going, drop it. Read the novel. Be happy about that. Life's too short to waste time ruining another person's day. But of course, it wasn't just one person venting their frustrations but numerous people. Especially when number 3, the Amnesia Arc hit and everyone got frustrated, and then number 4, people also started to realize that Claude wasn't a good person and decided that they had to inform Spoon of this, as if she didn't know. So yeah, poor Spoon was really stressed finishing this work. I'm glad she pulled through, but we might have gotten a few more chapters if people had just behaved. I find that frustrating and really hope that Spoon recovered well from that. If she ever picks up another manhwa, I will absolutely read that too, no questions asked. However, this video is not about that conflict. I want to talk about who made me a princess and why the story might be controversial. There are 4 main subjects I have seen people dislike. That would be Claude, Athy and everyone who loves her, as well as the Amnesia Arc and Jennette. I'll try to get into those despite really liking this work. Let's discuss the most glaring question first. Is Claude the worst manhwa dad? Somehow, no. I mean, the bar is incredibly low, so surprisingly, he is more at an okay level compared to other manhwa fathers. He starts out bad, but at no point does he try to sell his child off, and he doesn't physically abuse Athy either. However, he neglects Athy for the first 5 years of her life and then treats her like a dance monkey to entertain him. When he loses his memory, he tries to publicly humiliate her and then even to kill her. He feels bad about it after, sure, but that's what he did. Even worse, in the previous timeline, Athy knelt before him, begging for some affection, and he just rejected her. Then, when she was framed, he executed her without waiting for proof and didn't regret it when he got the facts. Claude is not a good person measured by objective realistic standards, not even by fictional standards. We hear he's a good emperor, but he absolutely threatens to kill people if they annoy him, even his closest allies like Felix. He's a typical tyrant who murdered his brother to take the throne. This brother was trying to kill him at that point, so that's fair, but he also hurt a lot of innocent people. The worst would be the massacre in Ruby Palace. We are told that Claude had an entire harem he murdered the day Athy was born. Probably because he lost Diana. I say probably because we don't know. This topic is never really addressed in the manhwa. I kinda expected us to hear that someone from Ruby Palace tried to kill Diana or something, which would explain her sudden bloodlust, but instead of any bad excuse, we just didn't get any. I'm gonna point out that the side stories implied that Claude might not have been much of a ladies' man, since he worried that rumors about him taking women to his room spread and that assassins and spies would come because of that. So maybe one of those ladies did try to harm him, but that logic is kinda shaky. But the story doesn't really give us much info. Objectively, not a great move. Claude isn't a good person. There's no way to sugarcoat that. But I'm gonna be honest, this trope is made for people like me. I am more in the camp where I feel like having a cast of all perfect and good characters would be quite boring. I adore psychopaths in any capacity. If you don't like tyrant emperors as an archetype, this story is really not for you. That's okay, but I wouldn't say it's a flaw of the story. In fact, sanitizing Claude like the animation series is doing it ruins the premise completely. Athy needs to win over his favor so he won't kill her. If he doesn't seem capable of killing his child at all, this concept falls flat. It also destroys the entire relationship development we're meant to enjoy, and erases all the tension from him as an unpredictable force. If he's not a bloodthirsty murderer, what's the point of this entire story? He's not a real person, so let him be a bloodthirsty murderer in peace. I'm not gonna defend Claude now and spend my time trying to explain that he's a good father now, that he had a difficult childhood, that a lot of servants and commoners respect him and stuff like that. Because no, he's still a horrible person. I'm just going to note that the story hinges on his presence as a threat, which the animation proves because I felt no sort of tension from his appearance there, and so it didn't work for me at all. Seriously, watch episode 2 and see how different their conversation is from the manhwa. The only complaint about Claude's personality I could see as a genuine flaw is that the story does try to defend him. We are repeatedly told that Claude is beloved by the commoners and that he has to be strict with the nobles to keep them in line. His biggest enemy is Anastasius, who's set up to be even worse pretty early, so he seems like the better option in contrast. He also has this entire backstory of being isolated in his childhood, having his fiancée stolen, being convinced his brother killed his mother, and of course the dark magic he used to hold back his emotions. By the end of the story the curse is broken, and he's so affectionate with Athy that he almost seems like an okay person now. It's clear that you're meant to like this man and be happy that he can be present in his daughter's life while also being a good emperor. Those poor women he murdered are never brought up again. That he sent Athy to the gallows in a previous life is also kind of forgiven because he cries while apologizing. Anyone who hates protagonist-centered morality and dubious male characters who are just hurt little babies but still somehow murder machines, maybe skip this story. But personally, Claude is just the type of psychotic I like in men, whether they present as the male lead or a family member of the female lead. He has enough sweet moments to make you get attached, and then he suggests cutting off someone's hand and feet. It's glorious. I know there's a market for this, and the market is me. So it would be hypocritical for me to pretend like that bothered me, but I can absolutely see why it would bother other people if this is not to your tastes. Mentioning male leads, I wasn't sure whether to bring this up, but I did see a few people discussing it, so I might as well. There's an entire subtext to Claude's and Athy's relationship that is not really in the story, but some people did feel hints of it and were pretty uncomfortable because of it. And there were some scenes where I was like, yeah, you can absolutely read certain things into this if you want to. Please don't get mad, I'm just repeating what I saw people comment on. Again, listen to me, I'm not saying this is going a weird route. I'm just saying if it was, you wouldn't have to rewrite a lot of the scenes between those two. Claude could easily pass as a male lead most of the time. The most obvious thing is that Claude, like most manhwa dads, is rather obsessed with his daughter. He carries her well into an age where he normally wouldn't be carried anymore. She also sits on his lap while at the ripe age of 14. Okay, none of this is bad in isolation, maybe weird but not bad. Then we get into his possessive side. He gets mad with Felix for picking Athy up. It's played as a joke on numerous occasions. Claude repeatedly tells people to leave them alone because he doesn't wish for his time with his daughter to be disturbed. He also gets horribly jealous at the mention of Athanasia's future wedding, or even just a small comment about some boy liking her. Then Athy calms him down by saying that she doesn't want to get married. She'll just stay with him. This is even framed as a super grand scene where she essentially picks Claude over Lucas and Ijekiel. I know that she's 14 or 15 here, so she has enough time to delay any romantic stuff. But I find the idea of not being able to date because your parent will get lonely a bit odd. Especially because Athy is the crown princess and certainly won't move out of the palace even if she did get married in, say, 10 or 20 years. Both her and Claude have a lot of mana, so they'll probably grow relatively old, right? Jealous fathers are a trope for some reason. I read a lot, I know that. But Claude does do it excessively. The story also kind of frames Jennette as a rival, despite her being a potential sibling. Also something that's typical in manhwa, really. This is done because Claude's affection is deemed limited and because Athy depends on him favoring her to survive. But still I raised my eyebrows a couple of times. More on that later. And lastly, Claude and Athy are even mistaken as a couple in one of the side stories. Granted, that was a joke and other people made fun of the person making that error after. I presume most of this was done to give fan service of a hot caring guide to the readers who aren't related to this man, so that they can fully enjoy it when his chest is out in the open the entire time. But since most of it is explored through the lens of Athy, I can see why some scenes could be misinterpreted if you really wanted to. Though again, I don't think that was the intention. Most scenes are more cute than weird. That last I choose you scene was the worst it got, so really you can absolutely read the series and just enjoy it. I personally found 2 or 3 comments this guy made a little weird, but aside from that, I never felt like Claude was a threat to Athy in that way. Another complaint about the story that kept coming up was that Athy's life was just too simple. From the very beginning, Lillian adores her. By chapter 2 or 3, the other mates do too. She meets Claude in chapter 6. After a single conversation, he's become interested in her, but is still a little weird. At chapter 18 out of 125, he panics as she spits out blood and proves that he has lost once and for all. By then, the most glaring conflict within the story is technically resolved. This is why we need Anastasia to pose a different threat, and the whole Amnesia Arc, of course. But it's the fact that everyone grows to cherish Athy super quickly. Ijekiel falls for her at first glance. Lucas thinks she's special. Lillian and Felix would die for her. Jennette quickly falls for her as well. Everyone's eyes are on her during the ball. The story repeatedly tells us that Athy is the most beautiful lady, the most clever person, the most deserving princess. Most people's world seems to center around her. So if you don't like characters of this perfect princess archetype, this probably won't be for you either. When I say that the story feels like wish fulfillment, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's more to explain that this is supposed to be a feel-good story, where the protagonist is doted on, challenged, but still succeeds. Athy is absolutely one of those chosen ones, where she's already exceptional from the get-go. Her biggest weakness is being too headstrong, too ambitious, you get the gist. Athy is clearly a protagonist with a very, let's say, simple personality, so it's easy for many readers to self-insert. However, she's a quite good self-insert character. Despite not being permitted any extreme character traits, Athy manages to be very charming throughout. Like when she stole all that gold, manipulated mates to get chocolate, and smacked Claude in the face. Her internal monologue is incredibly amusing whenever her father calls her chubby or when she faces people she doesn't like. Her banter with Lucas is great too, much like her confidence when she admonishes political enemies. Athy is of course super pretty and clever and works hard, but she's still allowed to make mistakes. From small things like stepping on Claude's foot during their first dance, to being shy in public during that event, to her trust issues. This protagonist was neglected in 2 lives, so it makes sense for her to hesitate to admit that she cares for Claude or to let him come closer after all he did. This comes back to bite her when she ends up being a very bad friend to Jennette. She avoids her without even knowing her and then benefits from her kindness, only to keep important information from her in return. Luckily, this is called out at some point. Jennette starts wondering whether to trust Anastasia or Athy because he at least tells her stuff, not knowing that he's lying. This is when Athy realizes that she messed up. She takes some time to think and takes initiative to go to apologize. Jennette, being a pure angel, forgives her, and Athy proves to be worthy of that forgiveness by taking Jennette's well-being into account during any further conflict. It felt like a real nice character-driven conflict without any giant misunderstandings or dragged-out grievances. You can understand both perspectives and realize why Athy acted this way, but still sympathize when Jennette feels lonely because of it. In general, I like the relationship progression throughout. I already mentioned that Athy and Claude get close a little quickly, but I still found myself enjoying every scene with them, and every little sign that she had her father wrapped around her little finger. Likewise, her friendship with Jennette, despite the issues between them, was heartwarming. This story also has the best problem ever. Both male leads are pretty dang good. They are already greatly involved in the story, sacrifice things if needed, and have their own personal way of interacting with our princess. They have different dynamics, so you can choose your favorite. And luckily, the manhwa leaves this open, so your heart won't be broken. Now, I'm not gonna play favorites, it's Ijekiel. I know I'm in the minority here, I'm so sorry, but he melts my heart each time he appears. He is just so sweet and devoted and slightly obsessed. But even so, I think Lucas is a good fit for Athy, and that their relationship was developed well enough. Ijekiel had an instant crush. In contrast, Lucas found Athy entertaining for a while and then suddenly realized, oh no, I like her. And refreshingly, Athy found out that both guys liked her early. She didn't know who to choose, but she was aware and communicated this to Lucas as well. She'll have to spend some time with him before deciding. Makes sense. Though, she also said that she would stay with her father instead of choosing which. I said how I feel about that. If I heard my crush say that, my feelings would dive out of the metaphorical window head first. So even though I saw many people claim that the romance with Lucas and Athy wasn't well written, I found it pretty good. It's not the main plot, but for a side plot it had a decent amount of scenes and a slow build-up. It's all you can want. Both Lucas, with his parents and his struggles being unable to feel emotions and grief, and Ijekiel, with his dwindling obedience to his father and Athy as his one secret in life, had nice characterization. They helped Athy on multiple occasions and both had a sincere chance with her. I've seen very few stories where all male leads have actual roles in the story, background motivations, and one isn't the obvious loser from the beginning, so I see no problem here. Unless, of course, you favorite Lucas and were upset that we didn't get to see them together. That would probably annoy me too, but I feel like the manhwa did imply he was in the lead. He did get to kiss Athy and she mostly blushed around him. As someone who favored Ijekiel, I'm just glad I can keep deluding myself. Man, I almost developed second male lead syndrome for the first time in my life. Boy, am I lucky. Amnesia Arc. I think this title alone will send shivers down many readers' spines. I am going to have a hard time talking about this arc with any kind of objectivity. I hate amnesia arcs, and I know I am not alone. To me, they tend to be plot devices to artificially stop or revert character development or relationships. Usually, they are not enjoyable for me to read at all. Especially if they take about 50 chapters to revert. 50! That's a record! Like half of the series wastes time on this stupid amnesia arc. It starts in chapter 46 and ends in 102. So by all accounts, I should resent it. And I did while reading up to it. I dreaded the very chapter it would start. But then somehow, I still didn't hate this as much as I thought I would. As the first 5 chapters of Grief were done, I found myself glued to the screen. I went through those next 45 chapters like a flash. Of course I wanted it to be over soon, but I still loved every storyline happening during this arc. It's partly because Claude acts stupid for around 20 chapters, but at least becomes a bit better for the remaining 30. So we do get to see more character development for him, because his daughter just wins him over a second time. As soon as he showed concern for Athy again, I was sold. Also because this finally gives us a chance to focus on Jennette and Anastasius. Those two are probably part of the reason why this arc went on for so long, because they took up at least 40% of the screen time. I'm happy that they did, because it allowed me to feel emotionally involved with them, so the final confrontation was twice as scary. I'd never complain about seeing yet another emotionally stunted tyrant realize he's a fool for his daughter. However, there's a fundamental reason for my judgment. I could shred through this entire series in 3 days. Other people had to move at the pace of 1 chapter per week, which means that if you do the math, this arc lasted for around an entire year. And admittedly, that would have pissed me off quite a bit. Especially because this requires the story to put Lucas away into a toy box, so that he can't release us and solve this entire issue earlier. And while it ended up working for me, I saw so many comments complaining about this arc, praying for it to be finally over. So many posts were made asking for confirmation when Claude would finally get his memory back, as they couldn't exert any more patience. This is not the reaction you want from your readers, so it would probably have been better to cut the entire amnesia arc a bit shorter. Just like 20 chapters shorter. Though I find it hard to ask for that when the flow of the story made more sense with it. Having Claude, who's all too powerful, out of the picture for quite some time, allowed his brother to plot, and for Athy's position to be less stable. It also forced Athy to do politics and grow as a person without the protection of Claude. So, even if it was painful at times, I feel like it's not a bad writing choice. For the first time in my life, I'm defending an amnesia arc. I can't believe it. Even worse, now I'm gonna defend another really big change made in an adaptation, even though I usually hate those. In the novel, Jennette is a very different character. She starts as a jealous rival and ends up as a jealous rival. Near the end, she lashes out and pities herself because everyone just adores Athy. That would be a super typical ending for the original female lead, who of course has to be a horrible person so that our new female lead can shine. The manhwa specifically changed this, luckily. I'm tired of the original female leads who suddenly turn out to be evil. Also, I adore Jennette in the manhwa. I think she's pretty much the person I wanted to protect most at several points of the story. I have seen people who are frustrated with her for being naive, and this is the one complaint I will legitimately fight people on. Jennette was raised in almost isolation, keeping her from seeing the world on her own, making friends, or forming her own opinions. Of course she is going to be naive, especially because no one tells her anything. We already discussed Athy, and while I understand her viewpoint, she is a shitty friend to Jennette most of the time. Roger also seems to use Jennette for his advantage to the point where she doesn't even think he cares about her. He doesn't warn her when he realizes Anastasius is dangerous, and he doesn't explain why he keeps her from speaking to her family. The same goes for Ijekiel to a smaller degree. I would say that Jennette is the only normal person in this world of the super rich and powerful elite. She acts like a sheltered girl her age would act, and I'm glad the series criticized the way she was treated and that she had her own happy ending. Jennette is deeply insecure, lonely, and isolated. A worse person would have been mad at Athy for being surrounded by so much love while she was alone. But our Jennette never felt any of that. She wanted to be loved too, but she never wanted anyone else to suffer for it. Even when Athy neglected her and rarely speaks to her, she doesn't just trust her father when he starts saying that Euthanasia is a bad person. She is literally too kind of a person for a dark spirit to take her over. Etanitas tries, but Jennette refuses to hate Athy, so he just has to give up. I have seen so many people hate Jennette and I don't understand why. Or rather, I can guess. Jennette, even here, is still a rival for Athy, not due to her own actions, but merely because of her presence. She is the daughter Claude could choose over her, essentially. That is why so many readers hated her when she first appeared and still hated her chapters after. Because Athy functions, as I said, as a self-insert, and therefore Jennette was viewed as a threat to this wish fulfillment. Listen, I'm a very jealous person. I also got unwell when Claude had tea with Jennette, like he used to have it with Athy. I get it, but I'm not gonna hate this angel for longing for love. The story puts these two girls up against each other for narrative impact, but frankly, I don't see why. For most families, it would seem quite obvious that both daughters can be loved equally. But in a lot of manhwa, affection for relatives, specifically female ones, is treated like a zero-sum game. A game where one can only gain if the other loses. It's why the mother tends to be dead, and why most female leads will have a father and a few brothers but no sisters. It's similar here. Whenever Athy is being doted on, Jennette must be treated like a disturbance. And whenever Claude does allow her to come close, he can't show Athy any interest at the same time. I know it's part of the main setup and that Claude's affection is weird and that there was this entire magic plot that explains why he avoided Athy, but it does frustrate me a little. In a romance, sure. A lover would feel threatened if the person destined to be with their partner shows up. But when it comes to siblings, it feels a bit weird to hold that sentiment, and it's a bit frustrating in many manhwa that deal with childcare or families. I was a bit surprised how long the summary got and how many screenshots I took while reading. You can't blame me because of those though, look at this art. I'd like some feedback if you like the length of the summary or if I should maybe try to cut it down a little, because we almost have 2 full hours of pure summary here. But I really struggle to cut down the length here. The story is packed to the brim. It has some action in every chapter and there weren't any subplots or scenes I found unnecessary. The story mostly stayed on track, was limited to a few central characters and allowed us to get to know them. I think this absolutely helped the story to be as captivating as it was for me. The emotional impact was just right for me. When Claude showed up, I feared them. When Lillian and Felix got closer to Athy, it warmed my heart. When we got father-daughter bonding, I was joyful. The Amnesia Arc wrecked me, especially when Athy cried. Then seeing Claude at a distance and having Athy slowly realize she misses him broke me completely. My heart sank when she saw him at the table with Jennette. I cried when she finally managed to heal him, and I cried when she received Jennette's rose at the end. I found myself rooting for all the characters at the same time, even those I had previously not cared for, like Roger and Anastasius. The love triangle offered 2 actually good choices, and even when I had a favorite, Ijekiel, my beloved, I liked the other option too. The plots from the antagonists actually made sense and were readjusted in real time. While our main characters were overpowered most of the time, I was still scared for them. Despite all of that, this work was incredibly funny. The chibis are glorious reaction pictures and I should probably save some. And the art. I'm not sure I'll be able to delete any of these. And last but not least, what I always say, this work ended with the premise it started with. Most of the world building and characters stayed intact and no giant frustrations jumped out at me, aside from Athy's teleporting skills that are conveniently forgotten once in a while. That's all a work has to do to be decent, and this one really fit my tastes. I almost want to reread this again immediately. That's how much I like it. Uh-oh, hyperfixation incoming. And now, after almost 2.5 hours, that's all I have to say. So yeah, feel free to give some opinions about who made me a princess in the comments. Do you hate Claude or do you love him? Am I wrong for favoring Ijekiel? Let's find out. And lastly, here's the hint for the next story I will cover. This one will hopefully be a bit shorter. And with that, I'll see you next time. Bye! I don't want to delete them. I have 1,800 screenshots from this manhwa and I don't want to delete them. What do I do? What do I do?